Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just I'm slightly dead inside. Sup, everybody? This is Carrick with ACG, and I'm here with Silver. Johnny couldn't come. He ended up having a little bit of illness, didn't feel so well, so he's stepping out. NeoGameSpark and Fightingcowboy. We're going to talk about this week's gaming news, PS5 Pro news, some rumors about Black Myth, Wukong, some games that I've played that I didn't get a chance to fully review. We're going to go over the Outlaws review reactions. Or you know, the thoughts about Outlaws as a whole and all of that. We're going to talk about at least a little bit about I've always messed this name up. Deadlock. I'm going to make sure I get that right. Deadlock by Valve. Saw some people who were reporting on that and actually sort of like that game. That was the one that, if anybody remembers, what was it? The Forbes writer? Was it a Forbes writer, or was it like The Verge? Somebody posted early and Valve banned them. Somebody posted about playing this game, and Valve was like, "You're out, bitches, you're out," and basically got rid of them and kicked them out of what I think it was matchmaking or something like that. That's a little bit like getting kicked out of the kiddie pool kind of thing. Like, I don't know why that would bother somebody so much, especially on a beta at the time they weren't allowed to talk about. But we're going to talk about it some. I saw some videos on it this morning, and it actually looked pretty interesting from what I saw. And then we're probably going to dive into food talk as always, because there's a bunch of us here who are carnivores or sugary eaters, and I'm sure it will degenerate to that as well. And we can't talk about Space Marine right now. I've already seen it pop up, and I just got a DM. Space Marines reviews will come out at a later time, and if anybody has it right now, we really can't give any kind of impressions about it. Speaking of impressions, though, these two guys, they've impressed me since day one. Very first time I got a chance. I think, Neo, we met Iron Lords, or was it?
You know what it is? We met in the wild west of Twitter, bro. That's how we first started.
No shit.
Talking.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh,
on Twitter.
damn! Just randomly on Twitter. Okay.
Yeah. So how it was I followed Defining Duke back when you were on there with Maddie. And, you know, like, I was like, oh, this guy Carrick is cool. Let me follow him. And then we just got to talking about random stuff. And then the topic of sour candy happened. And then after that, it's just like, oh, man, match made in heaven type stuff.
Yeah. Once that happens, once you go Sour Patch, you can never go back. And then let's see, the same thing happened. I think it was also Defining Duke, or maybe it was just Maddie and I doing our podcasts, is when I met Fightingcowboy. That was what, 4, 5?
Yeah, that would have been back when y'all had the Fallout themed podcast.
Oh, damn. Yeah. That was ancient. Ham Radio.
Yeah. It would have been ham radio time.
Yeah.
Damn, ham radio back then. And I got to meet them, but also Silver, who I've known now for 8+ years because of the podcast.
9 years now, yeah.
9 years.
Beautiful.
Because of the podcast, The Patron.
Doing this, yeah.
And as always, a pleasure, and I'm glad you could make it this time. We did miss you last week. But
yeah, sorry I missed last time.
no worries. This week, I just want to tell people I won't be missing super chats and stuff. This is the first time of the podcast. I believe it's all up and running. We're just going to have to see, because notifications are also a little bit hedgy. So if you guys get a chance, tweet it or Spotify review it and what have you. But first up, because these guys have, let's see, Fightingcowboy was on a couple weeks ago. Neo's, I think it was more than a year ago. I'm going to find out what they've been playing first. So Neo, it's been longer for you than anybody here. For how long you've been away? What have you been playing?
Oh, man, I've been, as always, people know this, I've been deep into JRPG heaven, bro, because that's literally what this entire year has been for me. You know, just going from like one JRPG to the next. So I'm currently finishing up a playthrough of Persona 3 Reload. I didn't start it when it came out because I was going through, funny enough, Persona 5 Royal and finishing that one up. And I dived into Reload, put a good chunk, like 70-80 hours into it. And then, you know, like when you're playing a game and it's just like, yo, this game is so good, but I just need a break, bro. I just need a break.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So I took a little bit of time off for that. And then I started playing a lot of like palate cleansers. Like I always have a palate cleanser or two. Usually it's like an 8 to 10 hour game. I might throw in a playthrough of like a Resident Evil game. But this time around, I got like rehooked on the Uncharted franchise. So I went and I binged 1, 2, and 3 after not playing those games since basically the PS3. So we're going on more than 10 years. And it was so fun just revisiting that generation of gaming and what that did. And then once I did that, I went back, put some more time Persona, and then I got into a Dragon Quest mood because there was all the hype for Dragon Quest 3 HD.
Right, yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Dragon Quest 11. And again, same thing. So I've been putting all my time into 11 right now, going through that game. And I forgot how long it is. I played it on the Switch when it came out.
Yeah.
And then now it's just
that's
like,
very easy with JRPGs, yeah.
yeah, exactly. And the thing about Dragon Quest 11, it's like when you beat the game, you haven't really beaten the game. There's a lot of other stuff to do.
Right.
So yeah, that's what I've just been doing right now, just focusing on Dragon Quest 11, taking my time with it, and then just also doing other stuff outside of gaming, you know, catching a lot of movies in the theaters, reading a lot of books. But yeah, gaming wise, it's definitely just been JRPGs for the past couple of months.
Well, let's make sure to
getting
swing
to Visions of Mana or
no. So Visions of Mana, I really wanted to dive into that, but I have a cardinal rule. I don't buy a new JRPG until I finish whatever the one I'm working on. I mean, I have some exceptions. Like I'll buy it to support, you know, like if it's a niche title, that's always my thing. Like, you know, if it was like last generation when it was like the Tales series. So even if I was playing something else and I knew a Tales game was coming out, I was like, okay, I gotta buy the Tales game, put it on the shelf for like a month, and then I'll get to it. But yeah, Visions of Mana, it's on my list. When I finish up Dragon Quest, I'll go to Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth, and then Visions of Mana. So it's like it's a hierarchy, and hopefully that'll bring me towards Metaphor ReFantasio when that comes out.
Yeah.
Did you finish Eiyuden
about
Chronicle earlier this year, or
Which one? I'm sorry.
Eiyuden Chronicle?
No, I
Earlier this year
haven't.
as well.
Yeah, there's just some things that slip in between the cracks for me.
Inevitably. I mean, especially with the
Yeah.
amount we're getting these days
Dude,
of JRPGs and whatnot.
It's insane. Like I still got Sea of Stars on my list too, bro. It's just, it's a great time to be a JRPG gamer, but bro, at the same time, it's like just that size. All I gotta say.
Yeah. It's pretty crazy. It's cool though. What about you, Cowboy? I know Black Myth Wukong you were playing a bit. What else have you been playing? Did you do any Outlaws?
Not yet. I was planning on trying to get through the bulk of stuff we have coming in, because it just seems like one of those games that'll gobble up time.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's been we've had kind of a slower summer. Like after Shadow of the Erd Tree.
Yep.
I started actually messing around on World of Warcraft and Magic the Gathering. So just pinnacle nerd status.
Yeah.
I had a buddy that we discovered that we both used to play card Magic. So I ended up proxying up all my online decks and been just kind of deck building, playing with friends a bit. But lately, obviously, just focusing Wukong, working on all the getting ready for the September rush, stuff like that. So just kind of staying busy, really. You know how it is. There's constant new releases. Similarly to the JRPG talk, I keep building up my backlist there. I just got Visions of Mana, but I have like a growing list, and I put them on the Steam Deck for potential travel. And I think I'm at like 15 hours in Chained Echoes, but I picked up the Final Fantasy Remaster collection. I got Sea of Stars, and now I got Visions of Mana.
Did you do Octopath Traveler too?
It adds up.
I have that on there. I have not done that one either. So it's just this progressive list, but we have a vacation coming up for my kid's birthday. So we're going down to Florida, and you take a day at the beach, the kids will crash at like 7. So I expect I'll put in some decent time there. So just, there's only so much you can do at a timeshare. You're going to be sitting around. So
if I had kids and enough money to do it, the first thing I would put in is a pool, because I remember as a kid, you're all filled with energy, and then you go swimming, and like an hour later, you're conked out. You're just exhausted. You had such a good time, but it's just all body resistance. That'd be a good way to make sure those kids are asleep. You have a pool though, I think, don't you? Don't you have a
No, we don't.
For some reason, I know you were talking about the deck. So I think
we do. So like our neighborhood has like a community pool, which I'd rather, I don't know, pools. I consider pools attractive nuisances because they seem nice, but when you consider like the pumps, the maintenance, the cleaning,
for sure. Yeah.
What we got instead, there's these like inflatable climbing pool things. It's not quite a pool, but it's like one of those. It's meant for kids. Like if I climb up at that thing is collapsing. But it basically has like a little pool at the bottom, and it has like an inflatable side, and there's like a bouncy house attached to it. So we'll set that up. You connect the hose to it. You turn on the air blower. The kids will run around and just go up and down the slide in the bouncy house for like 4 hours, wipe themselves out, and then after that, I just lift it, drain the water out of it, let the sun hit it for an hour, fold it up, put it away. So it's like super low maintenance. They last about 2 to 3 years, and then you replace them. It's the kids love it because it's like having their own little mini amusement park. So
Yeah.
It's
I
been
actually
pretty good.
have one of the huge, like, just swimming pools for a backyard, and it took me forever to get a space that was smooth enough for it because it's massive. Like, I mean, yeah, it's expensive. It's like, 800 to a little bit more, but this was about 3 years ago when I got it. And you throw the dogs in there,
Yeah.
and yeah, they've ruined
Yeah.
one. So I learned. I was like, okay, I can't, let him get in himself. I have to throw him in and make sure. But those things are amazing when you think about it. That is basically it. Honestly, just got to make sure that that if in your backyard, if that thing pops, if that thing
Yeah,
evaporates right
yeah.
away, and you're near something that you shouldn't be, or it's near a junction box, it's like you could be in a disastrous state of affairs. But yeah, those are awesome. What about you, Silver? What did you do last 2 weeks? Any gaming?
Yeah, I've been playing Dawn of War 2, putting daily videos up on my channel for that as sort of the lead up to Space Marine 2, because
Mhm.
you're also fighting the Tyranids in that campaign. I thought it would be fun to go back to that. Also, last couple of days this week have really been preoccupied with Star Wars Outlaws. Like, I have about maybe 15 hours into it so far. So yeah, that's been about it for me.
All right. Well, we will cover that in a bit when we dive into like the impressions of those games. Josiah, $5 super chat. Please tell Johnny to pick up Gory Cuddly Carnage. And I don't know what that is. But Johnny's in the chat. What's up, Johnny? He says noted. And then Danny Passion Official, $2 super chat, says Cowboy, even though he wrote cow. I'm not reading it like that, though. He said, Cowboy, I just finished watching part 23 of the Wukong video. Part 23. Damn. That right there is a lot of videos, man.
I'm up to 48 recorded. It's a beefy game.
It is. It's a beefy game. It's also delightfully unlike what a lot of people reported it was going to be like. I mean, yes, there's some Dark Souls elements to it, but it's very, very light when it comes to that. It's much more like a Devil May Cry with a couple Dark Souls elements to it. It's just its own thing.
I almost got like a God of War vibe.
That's what I got.
Yeah. It's a fun action adventure game.
Yeah.
You're changing your build around, you're beating up bosses, you're exploring for hidden goodies.
And exploring to me was one of the best parts of that game. There are even after I reviewed it, I was in chat and somebody found a boss I hadn't seen. And it was like 9 steps. It was like, you need to do this. You need to have this fucking thing. And you need to, on a Tuesday, drop an elbow on something. You're just like, what the fuck? It's like a and I don't know how they figure this out, by the way. I'm assuming devs, are like, hey, if you want to talk about this, I'll write down. I don't know how they do it, but they do it. This is like Remnant 2, when some guy was like, I shot a pipe and let the water fill up the room for 45 minutes. And then I walked through that and that got me a new class. And I'm like, the fuck? What? Who has the time?
Remnant 2 secrets are
Remnant 2 secrets are out there. But I went back and dude, there's something so nice about it. And there's multiple ways to enter somebody into Dark Souls games and those kind of games. Since this isn't that, it was able to do some other stuff that I really liked. For instance, those easier enemies up front, there's something that if a person wants to just get away from a boss for a bit because they need to figure some stuff out, you can just go destroy some guys. And it's not going to like hammer you so bad that you can't learn or get a short-term memory into a middle term. It's like, oh, I use the LB button to do this, or I do that. You can start to pick things up. The other was the focus on just dodging. It's so awesome because every game I play of this is like block, parry, dodge. We talked about Deathbound, block, parry, dodge, watch for things, watch this. Deathbound was ridiculous. But there's all these different things that most of these games have, and it's nice to see Black Myth just be like, yeah, that's not us. And they made it clear, 2 years ago, that is not us. They were trying to explain to people like that it is not the game you think it is if you think it's a Dark Souls style game, and it definitely isn't. It turned into something completely different. Have you got a chance to play it, Neo?
No, it's on my list. I have the game. I'm just waiting to get to a point in Dragon Quest where I'm like, I can put it down. You know,
I can walk away without a problem.
I can walk away. But now the FOMO is starting to hit me a little bit for this one in particular. I didn't think like I'd seen the game like when they first showed it off a few years ago. I was like, okay, this looks pretty cool, and then just kind of went away. And then as you get closer and closer to the launch of the game, I'm like, wow, this looks great. And I've been hearing nothing but great stuff about it. I have it on the PS5, so from my understanding, have any of you guys played on consoles? You guys played it on PC?
I did get to play it recently on console, and it definitely I mean, it is a little shady on the consoles, performance-wise and stuff. Little compared to PC. PC had its own issues though.
Yeah,
PC
yeah.
had its own
So
issues.
that's my whole thought process. Like by the time I'm done, or at least okay to put Dragon Quest down, it'll be like somewhat decently patched to where I can go into it and I'll be like, okay, that's pretty cool. But no, it's just everything I've heard about it's been great, so I can't wait to dive in.
Not to add another one to your list, but have you played
oh boy,
the Dark Prince Dragon Quest Monsters?
No, no, I haven't. I'm trying. I'm trying to put blinders on everything.
Dude, I'm rarely will I commit to JRPGs just because of the time sink.
Yeah.
That game, I got to the end where I was like battling the Japanese people in the auto battles. I was going like 28-2. That game will suck you in with like because you start fusing the monsters and then you're like, oh, well,
what's it on?
like,
PC and console?
It's a Switch exclusive.
Oh, Switch. Oh, okay, gotcha.
It is the last time my Switch got undusted was to completely go super hard on DQM Dark Prince. But yeah, that's one to add to your list.
I'm at it.
That kind of stuff, and that just reminds me of like just because of what you're talking about. Everything I've seen Monster Hunter Wilds, man, I can't wait.
Oh yeah.
I cannot wait, man.
Monster Hunter is always a good bet.
Yeah. You know, just so nobody speaks out of turn on what we can talk about or what we can't. But basically with Monster Hunter Wilds, everything I get out of what I've seen of that is that it's basically, and this was said in last week's podcast, that it feels like it's basically everything from Rise that they liked and from Worlds that they liked, and they just are, it's finally in one thing. You know how sometimes it like takes a third movie, you finally hit it. It takes a third book.
Refining.
You're refining and you're taking these things and you finally get this title that people had to work through a little bit prior, but they still really enjoyed. And then you see this new thing on the horizon. You're like, that might just be it, man. And everything I've seen of that game makes me feel like that is like the premiere. They're like not their magnum opus. That's, that's way too highfalutin pinky up shit, but it's their, it just feels like it's all of the right decisions put in.
I mean, it's a culmination of them making a Western appealing Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
Because prior, I mean, especially you look at the older entries, you look at 4 GU, still, you just didn't have the base there. And they really established that with World and Rise. That was one of the things, there was an interview recently where they said, they really wanted to see, because it's not just this niche franchise anymore. It's considered, it's a global entry. It's getting huge popularity. And so they're trying to figure out, how do we still appeal to this worldwide audience? How do we pull in what's worked, what's been, really, really drawn people in from all walks and put it into this, make the biggest world we possibly can with the monsters and everything.
Yeah, dude, it looks so good. Danny Passion, official $2 super chat. I'm already playing New Game Plus. This is for Black Myth. Game of the year for me, 9 out of 10. Yeah, Game of the year is going to be an interesting discussion this year. It's always interesting because there's all the crap around it, but also because I think a lot of times I have one or two genres that usually sort of whatever, they sort of hold my Game of the year, like whether it be an action or an RPG or whatever, and it usually is one of those two genres. I think this year there might be one or two that I've played for previews where they might be in the Game of the Year contention, which is pretty awesome to me, or competition, which is pretty awesome. Like, this is going to be a weird year to see. Yeah. Also, because we don't know about some of the delays. I mean, I'm hoping Stalker 2 comes out. They said it's not delayed, right? They're like, oh, it's coming for sure. And I'm all, yeah, you're in the middle of a land-in war. Like, I mean, whatever you guys need to do, it'll be fine if it doesn't work out, But I definitely want to play that one. Moving on from there, I want to talk about PS5 rumors. So, PS5 Pro. The rumors about a PS5 Pro for a long time. And I know Fighting Cowboy and I have pretty beefy PCs. I don't remember what NeoSpark has, and I know what Silver has. Does a PS5 Pro, first, before I get into the two major rumors, does a PS5 Pro interest either one of you guys?
So I just upgraded my GPU not too long ago, a while back, because I got a really good deal on someone. They were getting a 4090 and they sold me their 3090, and I was just like, okay, cool, I'll take it. Yeah. So I was like, okay, I guess that's a good deal. So as far as like performance and stuff is concerned, the concept of a PS5 Pro, well, pro consoles in general, I don't necessarily have a problem with them existing. Like, because if you're someone who plays a lot of console games and you want to get the best performance, you want to get the best resolution, what have you, then by all means, I think it's a good idea to put it out like every couple of years. The idea of a PS5 Pro is not as enticing to me by comparison to the PS4 Pro, if that makes sense, even though it seems like it's going to be
make sense.
much more capable than the PS4 Pro was. It's just that right now I haven't seen anything that would really justify me getting a pro console, like spending an extra, which we assume it's probably going to be north of $600 the way they're talking about it, versus the idea of back then where if you had a launch PS4, you paid like $400, and then if you upgraded to the PS4 Pro, I think it was at the time it was probably around the same price as a launch, so like around 400, but now spending way more for that, and I'm not really seeing anything. To me, it's not that appealing. I totally get it though, because if it is as powerful as people say, and you're going to get better resolution and better performance, and you play this console every single day, then yeah. But I don't really necessarily think I'm going to be in the market for one, because by the time I think about getting one, let's just say it's probably next year, we're already going to hear about the PS6, and then it's just like, I might as well just wait. I have a decent PC, and if I ever did want to spend north of $600 on something, I'll just get a graphics card, and then
that's a good point.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's the point I try to make to people, because I've heard people say, "Oh, it makes sense to get rid of this console and just buy a PC," and I'm like, where are you making up the difference? Like, I don't quite. It's like the graphics card alone costs as much, for as a console. But when you have both already, and then your upgrade path is pretty clear, then it does make sense at some point to just be like, especially with Sony putting titles on the PC, if you can wait a year, might as well just prop it up and be able to play all games at a better resolution on PC, and then later get your exclusive if it pops a year later. That kind of thing. It totally makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, best case scenario is if I get a good trade-in deal and I can trade in my PS5, and I'm like, all right, PS5 Pro, let's see what Sony has to offer for their first party game, sure. But the thing that's kind of killing me is that there's really nothing first party wise from PlayStation that I would be like, yeah, I need that PS5 Pro. You know what I'm saying? Like, it'd just be like, what, are they going to show off Horizon Forbidden West? Oh, great. Okay. All right, the best looking game is just going to look a little better. But if they said like, all right, we're doing this PS5 Pro, and here's the next Naughty Dog game, or a brand new PS5 from the ground up title, I'm like, all right, cool. But right now, I'm okay.
I just personally guess the one thing that they could launch next to would be GTA 6. If you have the best version of GTA 6 on consoles, that is a game changer kind of situation that just doesn't have a reflection anywhere else in gaming. GTA is pretty much the only title in the world that does whatever. I would say Gears was close, and Halo was close at one time, but neither are near that high level of achievement that they were. But GTA is. What about you, Cowboy? No reason, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it would have to be. I think the biggest thing is, in terms of the talks about performance, there's talks, it'll be better frames, but like this late in the console life cycle, unless it was, PS4 Pro or PS5 Pro is guaranteed to hit 4K 60 on everything released on the PlayStation. Like I'm not spending, $600 for 15 more frames.
Right.
Like I would want like practically a guarantee. I want, I don't know who the new CEO is of Sony, but like I want him coming down signing, yes, you're going to have 4K 60 on every single game you play with this. I promise. Otherwise you get to put a dirty sock in my mouth or something. Like, it's just because in terms of exclusives, kind of to what Neo was saying, there's not much else. I mean, we have Phantom Blade Zero. I think that's confirmed PS5 exclusive. That's potentially 2025. From what I've heard of like early stuff, it seems that's running incredibly smooth already on just the base 5. So, I don't know what else. I mean, I don't need extra frames for Astrobot.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Like what do I need? What do I need that extra juice for right now that I can't do on my PC?
Everybody in chat, I'd like to know what you guys think about new, in particular, console pro kind of situations that we're in, whether it be the Scorpio Xbox One that they had, or it be, a situation like this with PS4 Pro, PS5 Pro. Silver, I'm assuming you're 100% completely the exact same, right? No reason to get it.
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, I'm barely using the PS5 these days at all.
Yeah.
So, and like to Neo's point, I mean, the the jump to the PS4 Pro was at least fairly significant, where you had 4K and HDR as like incentives there, right? Where I have trouble seeing that jump being as significant for a PS5 Pro at this point.
Yeah, the Pro, not to cut you off, Keck. Yeah, the
No,
PS4
go for
Pro, it came out at a really good time because that's when we started to see the adoption of 4K as a consumer format, like that period of time, like 2015, 16, 17. And then you could see, you could see the difference. Like when they showed off, and the reason I brought up Horizon Forbidden West was Zero Dawn was the first game they showed off with the PS4 Pro. And then when they said, this is it with HDR, if you had an HDR TV and you were watching that press conference or whatever, and you downloaded the video, you could see the difference. But now it's just like, okay, you'll just get the same games running better. Like, okay, instead of, I don't know, a dynamic 1440p performance mode, you might get locked 1440p performance mode. Okay, but at this point, it's like, is that worth spending close to $1,000 for console only gamers? Sure, but I think that with the influx of the amount of people we have playing PC now, which is insane, like so I just started a new part-time gig, and the amount of people there I know who are gamers who have PCs, it's insane. Because 10 years ago, you bring up to someone you're playing on PC, and they're just like, what? You know?
Right.
It'd be like the most hardcore person. But yeah, I don't know. I think unless they budget it as this is primarily for a specific niche of people, I don't see the Pro being that much of a success at that price point. You know, like $700 for a console is insane, bro.
And it's weird too, because to do a Pro, you have to wait long enough that you can tape out an improved APU, and you have to have it well improved. So the only really way you could do that is make sure it's timed between the old versions of an APU and maybe your 4900s versus 3800s, that kind of situation. Otherwise, then you have to wait longer to get a better return, which is sort of what's happening now. And you get it, and by that point, the competition. And here, PlayStation is PC is competition directly for games, especially because PlayStation and Xbox put their titles on PC. You start looking at it, and you're like, well, why would I do that? It doesn't make a ton of sense. Now, I will say Sony is their ability to sell you bullshit is insane and has consistently always stunned me in their ability to basically get you to believe whatever they show. And like, oh, I need this. They're very good at the I need. They're the Apple of this group.
Oh, Killzone is gameplay.
Killzone 2 is gameplay. And you're like, come on. But Horizon, I saw that and I wanted that. I'm like, robots, dinosaurs, they had that perfect timing, right? That synergy of like, as a kid, it was probably ninjas, maybe some pirates, some robots, some dinosaurs, and they're like, well, we got 2 of those in here and we're mixing them together. And you're like, what the fuck? That's amazing. And it was perfect timing. But I do feel with the Pro, the other thing is the cost. They raised the cost of the PlayStation in some areas here recently, and I'm looking at the price, and I was thinking to myself, okay, either they're raising the price to, make up for any losses they have, or they're raising the price so that when you see the higher price of the Pro, you're not as shocked. Or there's a second sort of darker thought process. They raise the price of it, and the Pro comes out and it's a great deal more expensive, and you get another segment of gamer who says, well, why not? If it's this expensive, it must be better. And there are those type of gamers out there that we get, where you have the gamers that believe in get the most out of the money, and then you have other gamers who are like, if this isn't $1,000, there must be a problem with it. Right? That's the Apple kind of consumer, where they're like, well, if this isn't $1,500, if I don't feel the financial impact of this purchase, and if I don't have to make sure my kids are wearing capris because we can't afford full pants, then this Apple device isn't worth it. And there's some people out there that believe that. So dude, I'm fascinated by it. Pros have never done well, and in their total sales, they never have. I think here what you have is something that'll be easy for developers to roll out. I think GTA is a spectacular title, though. I think GTA is a godsend for Sony to be, and Microsoft, anybody. Switch 2. I'm not saying it'll be on Switch 2.
You heard it here first, y'all.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. It's like if you can tie into the biggest gaming zeitgeist of all time, might as well. And that might really be the only thing that they really even care about at that point, securing that GTA. Because the fact that 5 keeps selling, bro, like that,
I could see Sony be like, we're making this just for GTA 6. If y'all are gonna buy a console, get it for this.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah.
I could see that.
Yeah, dude, it's crazy. It's crazy, man. And GTA 6 got its own issues, whether it be trying to, get people from old online to the new online. They've got their own problems that are cropping up that they're going to have to figure out. But I'm excited
One
to
of the
see
reasons
the
I got the One X back in the day was actually to play Red Dead 2 in 4K.
Oh, God, dude.
What was
Red
it
Dead
on the
beautiful.
normal? Like 900p, probably? On the original, it would have been 900p, right?
It was, it was 900p on the PlayStation 4. I think it was 1440p on the Pro, but then on the One X, I believe it was like, was it native or was
it? It might have been 1800 or something.
Yeah,
it could be.
But
I forget what it was. Yeah. But
it looked gorgeous,
and it looked stunning on the One X.
That was the other thing I was going to mention is that, because this is what I used to do, but when you sell TVs, I can tell you straight up, resolution's the first thing people notice, seconds, frame rate, and the big gap has been beat, which was resolution. And it's been beat with upsampling and upscaling and all these crazy algorithms that, Samsung has their own AI chip built in that they can update with new, training data to make things look better. You got all this kind of stuff. And then you have frame rate. And honestly, 60's huge to me. I totally get why they want to do it. But there's a lot of devs who aren't going to go patch their old games either. It's almost like it's more, if you get it now, you'll be good for the future. But you guys know this. A developer could bring a 4090 to its knees. Developers can do whatever they want. They can just fill the game up with a billion polygons and now get 1 frame per second. So it's like, just because we get these powerful systems doesn't mean a dev won't go, well, we're going to make the most beautiful game ever. We're going to put some simulation of hair, some tress effects, as they used to call it, the hair effects. We're going to do some of that, and pretty soon you're going to be stuck playing 24 frames a second again on your.
I mean, look what happened with the graphical overhaul of Minecraft, right?
Oh, dude, Minecraft will still bring something to its knees if you turn the seed all the way up and the generation all the way up, and you're like 4090. You got an AMD thinking computer, quantum, and it's like, fuck that. It's like, we out. It's just like 4 frames per second. Yeah, it'll be exciting. I'd like to know what people think price-wise too in chat. What you're expecting price-wise for the PlayStation 5 Pro. What you think that'll be, because I'm actually quite interested to see where the price is even going to fall for this and how they're going to figure it out. Next thing I want to talk about super quickly is Monster Jam Showdown. So I got this for review. I did a 60-second review. I like the game. It's a little on the expensive side. It's like, I think it's $45 to $49, which for an arcade racer is a lot to ask right now. It's a lot to ask for an arcade racer to be like, hey man, we want pretty close to top tier price. But I will say it is an absolute blast. And, if you're a redneck, if you like, heavy horsepower, light vehicles, flying around, spinning on their tops, smashing people, redneck stuff, this is for you. And I like almost all of that. So I ended up really enjoying it. 4-wheel steering took a while to get accustomed to. Especially because I guess you would say it's a little like the Warthog. But if you're out there and you're looking for an arcade game, I really enjoyed it. It's just that price is rough. I guess,
especially when you look at something like Speed Freaks that also released though that released into early access.
I think that was early access. Yeah, I think with price, you just have to look at it like, when I say what I got out of it, I would say I got my money out of it, but this is one of those ones that's so top tier price level for what they're offering that there's a caveat there that you got to really be into it. You have to really embrace it. If you got to embrace hot dogs, Americana, BO, barbecue, and 4x4 pickups with, tires the size of other cars. And if you're into all that, it's definitely worth getting if you like that kind of stuff. It's got a 40 or 50 trucks you can unlock. It's pretty enjoyable, but just a heads up on that. And then next up, somebody had said, what do you guys think of Age of Mythology Retold? I don't think, are you guys like RTS?
I'd like to check it out. I think it looks cool based on what I saw. I never played the original. I used to play a lot of like OG Warcraft 2, StarCraft. So I used to vibe a lot with RTS, and I feel like as a genre, it's kind of, I don't know. I guess gotten suts. Yeah. There hasn't been a lot in it outside of your like Age of Empires. So I mean, I'm curious. I doubt I'm gonna put a ton of time in it, but at the very least, I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, same here, basically.
Yeah, the remake thing for the RTS section is weird because RTSs have never looked great. So when they remake it, you get an ungreat looking game upscaled to a higher res, and then you play it and you're like, man, I don't quite know. You know, they've definitely adjusted stuff, but it's not like a remake where everything's running with nanite on Unreal. And it's one of those titles that feels old. While I liked that, I could see a lot of newcomers going, why would I get this? Like, what is this even offering? RTSs have sort of matured into or transformed into the league style games. Like, you know, instead of multiple guys, it's like one powerful guy, but they're still looking down on that character. You still a lot of stuff flying towards that character. It's all real time. And that's sort of just how it's gone. And the RTS genre hasn't done well this year. What did we have? What was the big one we had this year, Silver? The sequel, Homeworld.
Yeah, Homeworld
2.
Unfortunately. And last year there was another sequel. There was Company of Heroes 3, which also
did poorly.
Wasn't hugely successful.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it for what it was, but a lot of people had major issues with it.
Yeah, it's I don't know, man. It's just one of those things where, like, I don't know. What do you guys think? What could an RTS genre even add? Like, what would cause you to, what if you were sitting back and one of the companies was like, hey, man, our brand new RTS, and you're like, whatever. And then they show something, actually, like, and you're like, this is awesome. What would it need?
There was a Starship Troopers RTS that was actually pretty good. I forget the name of it, a couple of years ago. Spice Wars for June.
Yeah.
Also, I think it has been received fairly well. So I think there is stuff there, and there is room and scope to mess around with, like Alien Start Descent, for instance. I would consider that like an RTS. Like that is a real-time strategy game, just without the building and whatnot, like just constructing buildings, but you're moving the squad around in real time.
Well, you can slow it down, but real time generally.
Yeah. And you can pause it as well. You can set the slowdown to pause instead as well. So there is space for that. But yeah, I would consider that a real-time strategy game as well. So I think there's a lot of scope to play with, especially as we see more and more. I think genres start to bleed together, to where they kind of start to lose meaning.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
But I think there's a lot of stuff you can do.
What about you guys? Anything? First, anything that's big, and then second, anything that would blow your mind. Go ahead, Cowboy.
Honestly, for me, it was Warcraft 3 when they added in the hero type classes. I thought that was huge from the RTS perspective, because you still had all your army management, but you also added in the micro that we see so much in like MOBAs today. You had this hero that was going around with your units that you had to separately manage micro for and levels for. I thought that was a huge just jump in the general strategy. You know, you're splitting, maybe my guy's going to go over here and level all the armies over here. It's going to attack from a different side, whatever the case is. Which, I mean, we kind of have that a little bit in Age of Myth with like the gods, I guess. I never played the original, but that's kind of the vibe I got. But outside of that, I mean, I think there's very little you can do without fundamentally changing what an RTS is. Right. You know? So I don't know. I do think it's gotten kind of stagnant, but I don't really know what they can really change without, you know, reinventing the formula to be something that isn't what we grew up playing.
Yeah,
that's basically where my mind is at, because there's only so much you can do. Like, you can add in specific things to the game that gives it its own little flair, but at the end of the day, you know, it is still an RTS, you know, so there's only so far you can go. I mean, Halo Wars was interesting when they did that. They did 2 of those games, and people seemed to like it, even though it was, you know, like an introductory form of playing an RTS, and that was cool. But would RTS ever, like, in order for it to like fundamentally change, I think it goes back to what you were saying, where things have to start bleeding together. And then at that point, you're gonna have people saying, well, this isn't as, it's not a sweaty game anymore, because it's not hyper super competitive if you start doing in all this other stuff. But I don't know, I feel like there's just gonna be some game that comes along and we're just gonna have this question answered, like, oh, that's how you do it, you know?
So I'm going to tell you guys, I truly do believe this. I believe somebody's going to probably mess around in the way that, let's say, what's the game that has the portals and the guns? They originally did it, we streamed it, and then they just released the second one. They have some beta tests Slipgate?
Yeah, Slipgate.
Yeah, so here I could see imagine a game where, let's say, one race has the ability to put a portal here and a portal there, pop some people in, right? Or adjustment of time, weird stuff like that. Like, there's something that I could see with all of the tech that we have now, where it's like, what if one of the players could reverse time and degenerate your guys you've evolved down a level or something? So, or, you know, you've got guys in airplanes, they hit a button and now they're in blimps, and you're like, what the fuck? You know, something that's like based on the technology we see now, because currently what we're seeing is a split off where, like Cowboy said, once they added the heroes, then it was its own thing, but then it turned into MOBAs. Like that, you know, like that made sense. People liked that part, and then they split that part off, and now you've got that hero and some ads instead of a full RTS. And the IP thing, because I hear this mentioned a lot, which is like, okay, so Halo Wars was good or whatever, which I'm, you know, definitely had my issues with Halo Wars too. But if you look at Halo Wars, that's also just tying itself to an IP. That's not really an improvement of the genre in any way. It's basically just saying, whoever does like this, we're going to niche you down into a smaller niche, but it's still going to be bigger than most RTS niches are. And I think it's Halo.
It's also a transition you kind of saw with Dawn of War, where the first Dawn of War started as a traditional RTS where you built bases and whatnot, and then Dawn of War 2, really, like, the campaign in that is really more of like a MOBA where you're just moving around heroes,
right?
Around, like, you get control over 4 heroes that you're basically moving around, putting into position to fight back against the hordes of enemies that are on the map. And you don't really get reinforcements. You don't get to build or recruit new units. You only have what you enter the mission with and what you leave with. And I think that transition, was really stark for some people. And I think Dawn of War 2 struggled a lot with that for the multiplayer, where it had to sort of bridge the gap between that hero focus and the older, like, unit focus of, like, the RTS games.
Guys, it may just be a situation where we start seeing these kind of games on itch.io or something, and they sort of die out as a genre. Like, you know, you see the occasional one, but it might be just something that back in the day it worked and made sense, and now games are doing a little bit of everything, you know. I mean, we've all had that moment when we got out of a car for the first time ever, because we were so accustomed to racing games where you couldn't get out of the car. Then you play like GTA, you get out of the car and you're like, what the fuck? I can do 2 things in this game? And now you're doing 50. And you're going in Yakuza karaoke that's better than karaoke games. And that's the other thing, is the competition, guys, is insane. And you can't fail. Right now, I'm sorry, but right now, every time.
Even a success can be a failure.
Even a success, Min-Me Games.
Look at Visions of Mana, dude.
Yeah, they're closing their studio down.
Failed even before release.
Min-Me had 3 premier titles. Desperados 4, the Shadow Tactics, and then Shadow Gambit. Premier, all rated insanely high, completely cratered them, and they just said, we're done. Like, we can't deal with it, which, by the way, is one of the best examples of the stupid things we can all say easily, which is just make a good game. It's like, we have thousands of examples of just making a good game.
It's never that simple.
It's never that simple, man. It's never that simple. Did they announce Visions of Mana, the studio, just closing? Or...
No, the studio is not closing. They've just basically cut it to the bone.
They've cut it to the bone. Okay.
Yeah, they basically, from what I understand, they made redundant the vast majority of people there, and the only ones who are there are like a skeleton crew to oversee the games that are coming out in like the near future. And then after that, it's highly likely they're probably going to close it down.
Damn.
Yeah. On the day it released, bro.
Man, there's some weird stuff. I mean, we talked about this. Everybody's talked about this, but like prior to COVID, there was some weird stuff that happened in gaming, but most of it you could track. You could be like, okay, they released the game. You're going to lose about 30% of your people because you're not building anymore. You're maintaining or you're patching or you're DLCing. So there was an expectation there. And whether it be good or bad. And some companies figured out a way to say, hey, you know what? I think we got an idea of how to not do this. And they, started moving team members to the next game while they were working on the current one so that they could give these ideas to publishers to see if they would be able to get cash and investors. But like I've talked about in the podcast, you now have investors. One of the game investors was saying, unless you show up and you have a huge name, like a Twitch streamer, a massive Twitch streamer, or you have who's backing you, or you have a level already completed, like the days of walking in and saying, I have an idea, done. At least for now. At least for now. They're completely done. And now when you have an idea and you release it, you might be done the same day as well. Like that is...
Yeah, both NetEase and Tencent said they're reconsidering and scaling back many of their investments in Japanese studios. And then I'm just looking at it. It's not even that recent. Like they opened this studio in 2020.
Damn.
This is crazy, bro.
I could see that happening too, because as China starts to develop its own name in the West.
Yeah.
And Black Myth, obviously, you know, a success. But even if it hadn't been, there still would have been the talk on your brain. You know, let's say the game sucked. We would have still talked about the graphics at times. You would have still said, well, yeah, the game, not so great, but look at those graphics. And that helps enough. And at some point, some of these companies need to spread away from the traditional access points into the Western, like, community. It's like go through Japan, you know, and now you're starting to see companies be like, well, we don't need to do that. It is international. Maybe the old pens. We saw this when it used to be physical releases, and for years, people were still releasing games on Tuesdays and Thursdays because that was the fucking shipping day for UPS. So you would get the game that night. You knew you could call up Fred Meyer and be like, "Hey, dude, I got $50 if you give me the game early." And I got so many free game or so many early games from those people. And then it took years for developers to realize there were 6 other days of the week you could release a game. You know, it was like it took forever because it was so tied in. Yeah, dude.
There are other days of the week? What?
Yeah, I know, man. Don't tell anybody. But apparently, I mean, and it was so weird because when it started going, you know, digital only for a lot of these titles, it was like, well, why don't you release it on a Friday when people are going into their weekend? Why don't you? And nobody wants to be the first, you know. I mean, that's pretty scary if it could be your entire livelihood, but it certainly worked out. I think Space Marine's on Sunday. Isn't that correct? I'm pretty sure somebody told me in our chat they were surprised on the release date.
True.
Is that not true? Okay. I thought that they spoke with great confidence, but that's why I said that's what
Monday.
they said. Monday.
It's a Monday?
Monday's still a little off compared to what
I was just about to ask, has anybody ever released a game on a Monday? Because I've seen Tuesday, I've seen Thursday, I've seen Friday, Sundays were Nintendo's, but Monday...
And Wednesday's rare, right? Wednesday, at least for me, I don't remember.
I love Wednesdays.
It's usually Tuesday or Thursday.
Yeah. Oh, and somebody was saying, and I want to give them a shout out, Anantech closing its doors after 27 years. They legitimately were one of the best websites for tech. I grew up on those guys, and to see those guys... you know, go away sucks. I'm being asked by Penahero, are devs going to get paid? WTF? Yes, they're getting paid. They're just basically pulling away. Basically, it sounds like they're looking at Japan, whether it be living expenses, whether it be how they deal with Japan's, you know, businesses and how distribution's handled. I don't know, but they're basically just saying we now sort of have some stuff figured out on our side, and we're going to pull back into Chinese development houses, which I'm fine with. I'm not fine with, you know, it sucks that they got laid off. But what I mean is, if they want to continue to succeed like they did with Wukong, you need to make best practices known and stuff like that. There's some. Christopher Jetzer says ACG Space Marine has the advanced early access for the top edition. So that might be
that's like 3 days early. So
that would be a Friday.
So that'd be the Friday? Okay.
That'd be a Friday. Friday's a good day. Friday's a good day for a Space Marine.
Space Marine, dude. My trainer is like insanely big on 40K. And we were I like sent him the like, hey, look what I have on Steam, and he's like, you motherfucker.
Yep.
I need it right now.
Yeah,
give it to me,
dude. Heat lists and hot lists for basically games that have grown in followers and grown in coverage has been quite high for Space Marine 2. Almost not as high as like Black Myth, but you can tell people are chomping at the bit for that.
Know what I'll say is shitty. Did you notice they jacked the tits out of the price on Space Marine 1 on Steam?
Yeah. That game you can get that shit for like a quarter, a penny,
really?
They came out with the anniversary edition. It's like $60.
Yeah, I picked it up to do a let's play of it because I'd never played it. It was like $5, $10 maybe when I got it.
Right.
And now if you go on Steam, it's Space Marine Warhammer 40K Space Marine Anniversary Edition, $59.99.
No way!
Yeah.
What the fuck? I thought you were going to say 19.
No, they knew people were excited for the sequel.
Of course
and
they
like,
did.
Let's just sneak this back in at
Here's the
full
thing.
price.
Here's the thing. As a person, I would do that if I had a particular shirt that was selling really well and it was bringing more people. It was my milkshake was bringing kids to the yard. I would raise the price on some other stuff probably, because the sale prices for me usually are because they're not selling. I want them to, or what have you, and then having the name out there.
Well,
but
there's
that is
demand there.
But are they better than
$60
yours?
bucks.
Yeah.
I would not be doing that. I would not be raising that.
Well, if the milkshakes are better than yours, then yeah, $60 is worth it. Come on now.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Yeah.
So speaking of Space Marine 2, we can talk, previews, because I think Cowboy did a preview.
I think it's definitely going to sell more than
got
the first
hands
one.
on.
Yeah.
It'll sell more than the first one, I guarantee. I also think that the big warning I want to give everybody, and I'm happy one's selling, but they're different engines, different enemy types, and these guys made World War Z, so just be prepared for a different feel as well. It is not a direct translation in the way you may think it's a direct translation because it's a sequel. It is, these enemies and the way they move at times is definitely reminiscent of the massive Aftermath maps on World War Z, because that's the same engine. It's a swarm engine. It does certain things. Its bots do certain things that I've talked about in the preview openly. But I think that game is going to do hotcakes. Also, because when I was doing the preview, other than 2 or 3 technical issues, I don't know about you, Cowboy, but other 2 or 3 technical issues, that thing ran pretty butter.
I haven't booted it yet, only because I'm like this close to the end of Wukong.
Oh, gotcha.
And I'm like, you know what? I want that done. I want it off the plate, and then that way I can fully dive in.
Damn.
So it's a holiday weekend. I plan on finishing up Wukong today, and then I can Space Marine and Astrobot my weekend away.
Sailor Mercury says, that's the same with Gundam Breaker 4. It's a different feel than Breaker 3. I like it, but taking time to get used to new gameplay loops. Yeah, and the gameplay loop in World War Z with how the hordes work and everything, the Tyranids in Warhammer are the same feel. So if you played either one, you're going to have some lore and some general moves that feel the same as Space Marine, or you're going to have the gameplay that you felt in World War Z slightly adjusted to be Space Marine. So that's one cool thing, 2 familiarity points that usually don't exist in games, but usually it's the same engine, or it's Unreal 4 to 5, 3 to 5, what have you. And this one is, this is also, by the way, you guys, I don't know if you guys have kept up on this, but Unreal and Halo, that's a pretty big change. The fact that they've got rid of the slip engine and they've gone to, Unreal. That'll be a very difficult translation to try to get the feel of Master Chief and everything into an Unreal game, because I don't know about you, I feel like the feel of Halo is one of the selling points.
Yeah. And that was one of the things that you always hear. You check every single Halo Infinite review, even if it was negative. People always say 343, they've nailed it. They've nailed the feeling of Halo. They've got it down pat. And honestly, there really is nothing that plays like Halo. Even though I wasn't too big on Infinite, it's just one of the things where it's like, you know what? I could go back and play for 30 minutes, because it feels so good and there's nothing like it. But switching to Unreal, if it's for the betterment of development, because I know 343 had 343 has a lot of problems in general, but
I would guess they're going to get the Gears crew to assist, though, because they're pretty top notch when it comes
Coalition's
to
been working
Coalition
all around. Yeah.
I would be very surprised if Coalition isn't like, sitting in on that and being like, oh no, do this, and giving them like, the secret sauce to make that good.
Because Gears 5, we're at 5, right?
Ascension is going to be Ascension's going to be.
Sorry,
6,
no, I
isn't
mean
it?
the one that came out. That was 5. That was fucking butter.
Yeah.
That was ridiculous. Like, so it's easy to look at like a Horizon Zero Dawn or whatever and say one of the best looking console games. You can look at racing and one of the best. That's all true, and that's all, like, we can argue that for days. But honestly, when I was playing that Gears, man, I was like, damn, this is slick as shit. And they nailed a lot of the feel that I was not expecting for them to nail. I know the story was neither here nor there, but there was a lot they did right.
It's insane. Gears 5 was one of, because when the Series X launched, it didn't have any current gen games. So when I was doing the preview for the Series X, they gave me like the review pamphlet of like games you could try it, and they're like, oh, here's Gears 5. Dude, I booted Gears 5 up, and I just played Gears 5 on my the One X, But then playing on the Series X, you're like, bro, this is so crisp. Like, why does this look better than most things out, man? And that's why I'm infinitely more excited for E-Day than normal. Like, yeah, of course,
So
I'm
am I.
excited.
It looks
They're going
so
back.
good. Yeah.
Yeah, dude, they're
Cannot
going back.
wait.
They're doing all that stuff. It's great. But then I'm just like, Coalition on this Unreal Engine 5, bro. I can't.
Yeah, dude, I'm really excited because they talked about it, and it's something that I've talked about in a lot of reviews where I've always liked Gears of War, where it's like you enter a room, it's a little more like chess than a lot of other games, where you enter a room and by the time you're done, you might be fighting back out the way you came because there's so much flanking going on. Everybody's really good at flanking, but they stated that they have the technology now to deliver the graphics and the number of enemies that they want to deliver, which I think we can all see. Some games are going this way, whether it be Space Marine 2, Dead Rising coming back, and they're testing the Dead Rising, right? Yeah, they're testing the Dead Rising Deluxe remaster to see how a bunch of enemies on screen are going to work out, and if people are, is that going to entice people? But the idea of Emergence Day, that's nuts. That's beyond, that sounds like it could be one of those crazy moments in games where you're like, this is, one of those moments you remember forever, when you see a ton of enemies coming at you and you have to figure out how do you handle that with all these guys. And of course they nailed it with the commercial. Those guys, they're one of the few companies that when they release a commercial for a Gears game, I'm always like, yeah, you guys are pretty good. You guys, you guys get me somehow. Halo 3's diorama was obviously excellent as well, but it wasn't in the game.
I just didn't want.
I love it.
Now it interrupted anyway.
I love it. I was like, I'm getting hungry, but I don't want to.
So I'll tell you 30 minutes prior to the wrap, and then gotcha.
Okay.
Yes.
I hope I don't forget that, but and then people are saying here, people picked up on that right away. Special edition Gears controller for PS5. Yeah, the PS5 thing. Microsoft probably going to release E-Day on PlayStation. I will say one thing. I think for the most part, what we have heard and what makes the most sense to me is that some games they're just going to look at and say we're going to release after 2 or 3 years. And then some games they're just not going to. They're going to hold on. Also, one thing to remember, if somehow magically Microsoft ends up doing really well in the next gen, I guarantee you those will dry up. They will dry up.
Yeah.
That is exactly how that is how all business works. Is like, we're all a team when we need to be a team. But when we don't need to be a team, we are fucking not a team. And that quite literally makes perfect sense to me. That's what they're going to do.
That's literally, like, I always tell people this because people are always just like, well, yeah, they're just trying to do this to grow the brand, blah, blah, blah. Xbox would not be doing any of this stuff if the Series X and the PS5 were neck and neck, bro. They would not be doing this. They'd be plastering Game Pass everywhere. Like, yo, we got all your Call of Duty games. They would fight tooth and nail to make Call of Duty exclusive. They would They would hire Disney lawyers and everything, man. They would do what they need to do, but they're not in the position that they should be. So that's why they're doing this.
Yeah. And by the way, we've seen this with, Sega Saturn. They would fight to get things. And there were a couple games that I didn't expect to be in multiple places. And Sega's gone. Dreamcast came and went, and they're third party. A lot of these companies that do this aren't platform holders. Platform holders, if they can't spread the platform in that gen, they need to make money back for that gen in any way, which is what we're seeing. And by the way, I also think it's very smart to say 2 years down the road, you release a game that isn't necessarily known as its entire DNA as this console. Like Sea of Thieves, not to be rude, Sea of Thieves tech is insane. Water tech, cloud, stuff they do, awesome. But at the same time, look at what Grounded and Sea of Thieves have done. They were outselling PlayStation games. They were doing insane numbers. And Sony makes some money from that, but guess who makes more? Microsoft.
Yeah.
And guess what they weren't making at all prior? More money. They looked at their numbers and they're like, we're not spreading, we're not growing the user base. Let's do it. And I know why people don't like it, and I absolutely understand that. I think the big thing these two companies need to do, guys, PlayStation 6 and Xbox, whatever consoles they release, they can't. It's a sequel for a video game where suddenly Kratos has no powers, and you're like, motherfucker, I ended the last game, and this guy could destroy the planet, and now he's a baby. He's like just a giant muscular baby, and I have to, you know what I mean?
Bro,
Like,
I was just talking about this with one of my boys who played Black Myth. I don't know if this is really a spoiler, so you can confirm nor deny. But someone told me they had that God of War 2 effect in that game in the very early.
Well, so the way.
Go ahead.
I would say no.
That's
it's not really a spoiler because you start as Wukong. You play as Wukong. You don't. So the main game, you're technically not. I mean, I don't know. Yes, but no. You're playing as the destined one. You're not playing the game as Wukong. So you start the game whooping ass with all your god powers, and then you play the game as like just this rando monkey that has no powers. That's like trying to recover the relics of Wukong to make shit happen. Okay. So it's not
kind of
not
like
quite...
Force Unleashed, where you start as Vader and then go to play Galen Merrick.
Yeah, like you're a separate. You are a separate person. Which I don't know. I don't know if I would agree that the God of War effect is that bad, because we do get both our weapons at the start. Now, Tears of the Kingdom, on the other hand, that was some bullshit. Because you went
1, 2, and 3.
Yeah,
look what they fucking did. They
brought him back. At least with Mass Effect 1 to 2, there was the whole you died thing.
Yeah, the story significance of that part made sense. And then when you get to there, I'm like,
yeah, that's what happens when you sell the original game on a different console platform, and you have to figure out how to get newcomers in. What do? You kill your guy after he just saved the galaxy, and then you make him a little baby boy again. It's that kind of stuff. I don't want it for consoles, guys. I want a console to come. I want the OS to be, somewhat solidified. I don't know why it takes so long for like Microsoft to fix a store. They're one of the premier, software companies. They can't even figure out their own search on their store. There's things that they need to fix. I want it to release. And Sony tried some stuff. I don't know if you guys remember, and I don't even know if they're on anymore, because when I review, I can't see them because nobody's played it. But there used to be the guides at the bottom where you could see if somebody, like if you're fighting a boss, Sony was like, we're going to be able to have it so that if your friends fought the boss, they could share this and you could see, you can go like click a button and watch how somebody beat the boss. I don't even know if that's a thing on PlayStation anymore. But the plan was originally they were going to do that. So they were thinking outside the box. Microsoft, they need to nail Discord, streaming. They need to nail if you want to stream from the device. They need to nail the ability to change things like HDR. For example, HDR is a disaster right now. Everybody who's got a TV, all the time. It's at least once a day I get a DM and somebody's like, I just bought an HDR TV. It looks weird. Can you walk me through every bit of the setup? And I'm like,
please help me, Guru Carrick.
Real quick, I want to read this super chat. It's to Cowboy. Christopher Jetzer, $20 super chat. Also, thanks for the super chats. They help the channel immensely, especially as we start out. He said, Cowboy, I still laugh because of you getting shit for Dragon's Dogma 2 DLC, and some people are complaining about your tank tops, and your response was priceless. Go to the gym and get bigger arms. Just
exactly, baby.
Yeah.
Wait, so they were mad that you were just wearing tank tops when you were playing the game?
Yeah. So no, well,
they were mad about everything.
There was a podcast with or I don't know. Somebody was talking about it, and like one of the comments was like, "This fucking guy sitting around in his tank tops, put a shirt on," and I'm like, "Get in the gym, bitch! Like it's not my fault you got small arms."
Yeah, I'm telling you, man. Yo. Do some preacher curls. Come on,
do some preacher curls, yeah. Get off YouTube and living vicariously through fitness YouTubers and actually get outside yourself. I do remember the DLC kind of situation. That was sort of a crapper because
I was actually talking to Capcom about this too, which I got a really interesting perspective I haven't gotten before, because I was out there playing Wilds, and so it's like me, the Capcom manager, and Super Rad, and we were talking about the DLC situation. And I was like, it probably because the store, what they had done was they basically took the legendary edition of the game that had like all the little micros, and they piecemealed them out. So you looked at the store at launch and it had like 15 things in it or whatever, instead of just being like legendary edition upgrade and micro. And from Japan's perspective, the reason, because I was like, if y'all had just like shown that as like deluxe edition upgrade, there probably wouldn't have been drama. But Japan viewed it as they were doing a service, because they were like, maybe people don't want everything. We should piece this all out instead. And I'm like, I didn't think about that, but that definitely backfired.
And by the way,
is that how you thought?
You have either one of you guys run patrons?
No.
So if you ran a patron, I can tell you the same thing happens, Cowboy. If you split it up, people be like, oh, he's just trying to get, just trying to like not have to do one particular thing. It should just, and so how we view micros is completely different than how somebody else does. And they may think, nobody likes micros. They're in your games. Sorry, people. Most of your games are going to have them. But the delivery of them, I will still say, Dragon's Dogma is far better than Rage 2, which had a gap in their fucking menu when we reviewed it. And I talked about it in my review and got sort of some shit, but I was like, there's a gap in the middle of the menu. That's going to be a store. Nobody fucking puts a 50 size font gap in their start menu between options and new game. Come on. That's a store. And the moment it went live, and we've seen that with Assassin's Creed games. You're reviewing an Assassin's Creed game. You're like, I want to check on micro transactions cost. You hit the button, and guess what it says? Ubisoft Store does not work at this time. And you're like, you sons of bitch. So you usually have to go and you have to ask a friend who works there, or be like, or somebody that you know, and be like, can I at least get the idea? Yeah. As for Dragon's Dogma 2. I'm going to tell you guys a game I think is going to beat it. Soundly, handedly, from what I have seen, and the 3 people I've asked who played alphas, is Black Desert or Crimson Desert.
Oh, Crimson, yeah. I was talking to Ruri about that. He said it's wild.
Yeah.
Which I mean, I liked Black Desert. It just the biggest problem with Black Desert is it's fun, and then you hit the grind. And if they take that to a single player experience and remove the grind and just keep that gameplay, like, it should be phenomenal. Because like from an MMO perspective, that game did so much shit that like we hadn't seen before. I was clambering on top of buildings and juggling multiple enemies and freeweaving combos. I was like, this is fucking crazy. This is the most fun I've had with MMO in forever. And then I got to like level 30, and it's like, okay, now you need to grind 6,000 mobs for your next level. And you're like, oh, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. It's almost like you went from your old job where you'd been there for a while, and then you go to the new job where you're low man on the totem pole, and that grind begins again. You look up at the top and you're like, oh my God, this is going to suck dick. I'm just putting it out there. From what I've seen, there's some jankiness, but, just getting some DMs from people because they hear me talking about it a lot, because what I saw looked real back in the day when they were showing some different gameplay bits, and there were real things going on with AI. You could tell it was real. It wasn't this like, here's a guy riding a horse, nothing's happening. You could see AI reacting to a fight. You could see them moving in. You could see, people running. You were like, oh, there's some realness going on here. These last couple boss battles they've shown, especially Sand Turtle, I believe is what it's called, where he gets on the back and then flies around, then does a Spider-Man swing, and then glides onto the thing's back to stab it. And I was like, dude, that's Dragon's Dogma, but less janky. Well, still janky, but I mean,
that kind of freedom is
something
just
about it.
There's something that's still what I love so much about Dogma when I played it. Like, just the way that world felt when you were getting involved in shit. There are very few RPGs that give that vibe of just
absolutely.
Like, I'm going on a fucking adventure and I'm having a blast.
Yep. Dude, one of these days, one's going to release without those issues, and that's going to be the classic. Dragon's Dogma 2 could have, if they had fixed up the FPS, maybe had a story that wasn't like Baby's first day out, because I don't know what that story was supposed to be, but that was one of the worst. I mean, it wasn't even bad. It was so bland. I don't remember the story, and I played it twice, and I still can't. I'm like, what is going on? You go to a masquerade ball and all this, because they want you to understand the disguise system a little bit. So they're like, hey, why have you do this? But at the same time, no matter how janky it was, when you go into a battle in that game and you jump from like one griffin back to another one, that's like, that is high stakes advent. That's what, as a D&D fan, I used to,
it is right up until you reach the point where like the difficulty breaks.
Yeah.
And it becomes way too easy.
Yeah, well, that happens.
That's the problem with especially New Game Plus. You get
New
there,
Game Plus,
and like it's fun slaughtering everything for like the first 30 minutes, and then you're like, there's no dynamic. Like, where's the
Yeah,
it's fun being a god, but being a god definitely it gets a little. You're like, all right, well, I need time to find the PC mod that jacks enemy health up 2.3 times and tries to add a new movesets.
That's what I did. We were replaying Starfield, getting ready for the Shattered Space DLC, and I got a mod that like 10 times the enemies, better AI, and playing it to just sort of like re-enjoy it because I'd already played a bunch of it. And it made me feel prior like the New Game Plus I was just too powerful, and then you go in and now you get schooled again, which is always nice. I like the challenge in games versus the godhood in games. I get why people like the godhood feel, but I'm actually more of, if there's not a risk, man, I start falling off pretty quick. If there's not, even if I have to push the risk, even if I have to do something. And then I'm also being asked a couple questions by our people in the Patreon. Fighting Cowboy and Neo, you guys can go first. How do you guys choose what game to cover, or what game interests you to make a video on?
Honestly, it comes down to like whatever piques my interest more than anything. Unlike a lot of people out there who they cover like a lot of like the new releases, which is cool and everything. To me, I'm not really gonna like try to force myself to play something just because it's like a new thing. So when someone asks me like, "Oh, are you gonna pick up this? You gonna pick up that?" I'll be like, "No," or I'll wait for it to drop down in price, or I'll wait till I have some time, because at least when it comes to JRPGs, I don't try to like rush through it. And one thing, and it's part of the reason why I don't get too many codes for JRPGs, or I don't accept them as much as I used to, just because of the time sink. And some companies will give out codes. I think this just happened with Outlaws, where they gave out the code, I think like 6 days before the embargo or something along those lines.
Yeah, 6 or 7 days.
Yeah. So the concept of doing that with a JRPG, I remember there was one, I forgot which one it was a few years ago. But they gave out the codes like a week in advance. And the main story is like 60 hours. And I'm just sitting to myself like,
yeah.
Like, unless you literally dedicated every single waking moment of your time, it's not going to get done. So what I would usually do is, if I play a game for a JRPG, I put like 10 to 20 hours, and then I do my impressions, and then later on throughout like the past couple of weeks, I'll do a full review. But that's mainly for like the stuff that I'm interested in. I don't really try to like play things that I know I'm not going to be interested in,
Right.
Unless there's like a weird, like someone throws a wild card in the mix, like, "Oh, that game looks really hot. Like I didn't okay, I'll try that out." So it comes down to like just based off like what I'm interested in more than anything. So very simple.
I think that's actually one of the smarter ways to do it, to alleviate any burnout that is possible too. What about you, Cowboy? Like, what?
I'd say it's about the same. You know, being in like the Let's Play sphere, like you're always gonna pretty much target a release per month of like something that looks good.
Yeah.
And whatever looks like it's gonna have a little bit of lasting power, I'll usually make the Let's Play series, because you know sometimes you get something short. Like we had a slow period, and I did God, what is it called? Let me find it. Nobody Wants to Die. Which it was a cool game.
We were surprised, by the way.
Yeah, it was
no
like
one could figure out why you did that in my chat, because I showed it to him.
There was nothing going on, and I was like, all right, you know, it's like 5 hours. It's something I don't usually do, but you know, it's got that you know, Blade Runner cyberpunk type aesthetic going on. So why not? I'll check it out. But usually I want something that's going to last a bit, and something I'll get pulled into. You know, Black Myth, Nine Souls, you know, Dogma, Hades, stuff like that. The action adventure, and then the stuff that's super open world, like Outlaws, for example, that I'll always just put on a stream, because it's, I feel like your big open world games like that, it's so hard to really turn it into good episodic content.
Yeah.
Because, you know, you go off on a tangent, and the next thing you know, it's been an hour and a half, and you're customizing your blaster.
Yeah.
And then besides that, anything that looks like it's going to be smaller or just easily digestible, I'll usually try to also put that on a stream, just because I don't like uploading multiple games at once. Because then if, you know, like if I'm, you know, if Wukong's not done and I'm uploading like Wukong and Astrobot and Space Marine, then whatever is the most dominant, you're going to have people going to the other games and be like, why are you fucking playing this? Put more of Game X.
Yeah.
And I feel like that, you know, then I feel bad because one game is getting shit on in favor of another game. Which I feel like, well, then I'm just doing like, you know, a disservice to this one title. So I usually try to just figure, all right, what am I enjoying the most? What can I really, really pump and make a fun series out of that's digestible with little blocks? Like Wukong, it works great because, you know, you play through, after about 30 minutes, you're going to hit a shrine. You're going to hit a boss. There's like very natural breakpoints. Same with like a Souls game. You're going to get past a boss. You're going to get to a bonfire. And then, you know, with like your Outlaws, which I still haven't started yet, it's just, you know, I need you when I have like 5 hours that I can waste and the kids are in bed and I can just explore.
Yeah. Speaking of that real quick, what boss on Black Myth, is there any boss that's offered any trouble?
2. So the first time I got to the chapter 2 boss, Yellow is it Yellow Wind?
The guy who looks like Hellboy 2 Dark Prince, who has 2 forms.
I'll find his name in a second. Where did he go? 9. First Prince, Xing Dang. Yellow Wind Sage, the guy after you fight the tiger in the blood pool.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
So I got to him, and I hadn't found the secret for that level that just completely cancels out his win bullshit. So he took me a couple attempts, and then when I finally went back to do all the hidden bosses, Yellow Long, the like lightning halberd dragon dude, he got a couple attempts with like figuring out my dodge timings and whatnot. And then actually the final boss of chapter 4, he was pissing me off though, because like his base moveset wasn't hard to deal with, but that motherfucker, dude, his hitboxes. So it's like you're fighting this big spider looking dude, and I'm like, here are his legs. I'm standing right in the middle, swinging my staff all around and missing every swing.
Yeah,
because you lock onto the body, but his legs are the hitboxes, and I'm like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah,
like I can't. And then I would be like, okay, time to pop my special, and he would go underground for like 30 seconds, and I'm like, are you fucking for real? And he'd come up, and I'd pop my other special, and then he would go up in the sky for 30 seconds, and I'm like, oh my god, like motherfucker, stay on the ground and fight me.
Yeah.
This is out of any. The thing I hate the most is bosses that just want to like run away. I'm like, stop wasting get your ass down here so I can fucking kill you. Like,
yeah. What are you doing trying to stay alive? Let me kill you.
Stop running.
Stop running.
How dare you?
For me, weirdly enough, was the ripoff of Kung Fu Panda's tiger guy. I can't remember his name, but in the Pool of Blood.
Yeah.
I don't know what it was. He was one of the ones where I had to go in on purpose and die by just dodging. Just feel
out his moveset.
Yeah, on Dark Souls games, I've made it like I have to make sure I have no ego. I put away the ego at the door. So if there's a boss, I will go in and on purpose, like remove my finger from the even ever hitting the attack and just dodge, and watch and live.
Yeah.
Dodge, see how far I lived, dodge. But what I like about Black Myth is there's the occasional boss that if you do a bunch of damage to them, they switch and start doing a different attack you don't see as often. And so I would get good at that dodge and I'd be like, okay, I know every move he's going to do. This is great. And then go in and do a bunch of damage up front. And then he switches a little bit and he starts doing, these other moves that I'm like, and it's not a bunch, but it's enough to make me go like, oh, damn, he was difficult. And there's a rock boss in that I don't know what was going on. He's got some ads. He's an optional boss. He is just a rock with some arms and legs. And he does some ads that they had my number, man. And I just
is it the lava rock or the rock in the sand area?
Rock. Just he's the rock dude who goes like boom, boom, and then pulls the ground up.
Is it because there's one I did that's the rock dude, and I was grabbing shit around in the like the Buddha eyes or something, and I was able to summon my own rock dude to fight the rock dude.
Yeah.
So I think that might be the one, because a lot of the bosses, from what I've experienced, it seems like a lot of them have some alternate condition that if you fulfilled, like the tiger dude you were on, I ended up, I had something that made me completely immune to his fire. So he was doing all of his bullshit, and I was just like, stop, sit down. You're not, we're not playing fire tornadoes. Get back in your kitty
Do you know what
cage.
I did? I killed the guy, one of the dudes on the level prior, and I got water stamina armor. And the blood pool is water to the game.
Nice. So you get the bonus in there.
Yeah. So even though it dropped my defense, I looked at that armor and I'm like, I bet you there's no chance they're not going to have this make sense with this character. So I went in and started the block. And then I don't know why, but everybody in my Discord, we had like 15, 20 people streaming it. No one realized you could dodge in place. And I'm like, dude, your game is going to elevate 1,000% if you realize you don't always have to dodge a direction. And once you figure that out in Black Myth, I mean, we have one guy, Amutski. This guy is on GeForce Now. So all of the GeForce Now issues you could possibly have. He absolutely has done the best I've ever seen, because prior to it, we were like, okay, dodge in place is a good thing. Go in, maybe die, watch your dodges. And he just smoked boss after boss. Even Drop Bear, that piece of shit, Macho Man, light everything on fire fucking bear that leaps up in the air and drops. He's only like the second main boss, man. He's in the temple. Do you? He comes at you, lights his hands on fire, and he like.
I don't know if I remember him. How was that? Well, if it was near the start.
Early.
It's probably just.
It's like the second. But that guy.
I mean, there's been so many fucking bosses in that game.
That guy was dropping elbows on me like Macho Man all the time, and I was like, "You piece of shit!" But once I realized, you can just dodge in place, it dramatically improves it, which it's nice. Yeah, it's definitely cool. Going back to choosing titles, I do want to say I'm pretty much the same way as these guys. I'll choose titles that I like or that interest me, and then a lot of companies will just DM me and say, do you want to cover this game? And I will always pick an outlier, like Monster Truck or Little King's Bird, some kind of outlier title. And weirdly enough, I've been pretty lucky. The outlier titles have not been terrible, because if they were, that would cause burnout. I do not like the idea of playing a game that doesn't interest me, even if it's a trash fire. If the game's terrible, that can interest me, because I'm like, wow, this game fell apart. But for example, Deathbound was right here. It was like right in the middle, and that was pretty hard to rough through, because there were enough issues, and it was a Dark Souls style game, that it just sort of like, it just needled away at the fun after a while, where I was all, man,
you can if you're not enjoying something. Like that was me with Tears of the Kingdom. I gave it the old college try. I did like 5 streams, and I'm just like, this is not for me.
Yeah, it's just not for you.
You have to drop it. Doesn't matter. Like, people are like, no, you don't. Doesn't matter if people think you don't understand it, or it's the hottest game out. Like, if you don't enjoy something, especially from the perspective of content creation, if you're not enjoying something, the worst thing you can do is force yourself to make content on it, because that's going to absolutely show through if you're not having fun.
Yep. Go ahead, Silver. Were you going to say something?
No, just very much agree.
And then next up, I want to talk about this. This is a small bit of news, but Remedy leaving Epic and not doing 505. Obviously, they've decided to join up with Annapurna for their new publishing, as well as Annapurna's looking at TV shows / movies, the typical meta commentary on a game. I actually think this is a good example of a game that could do well. Control, I could see TV shows, I could see whatever, I could see webisodes, what have you. Yeah. But man, Annapurna, it's like a deal with the devil, man. It's like, I don't know. I guess leaving Epic makes sense. You guys know they still haven't made money.
Yeah.
On Alan Wake 2. Can you believe that?
That's rough.
It is rough.
What was the production of that game though? Was it like insanely expensive to make or something?
It was. And Epic helped that. They wouldn't have been able to do it at all without Epic. They had stated that like it was nowhere. It was just not even going to be done without Epic support. So that's why they went with Epic. But I don't know if you guys also saw this, but I think it was Tim Sweeney. No, was it Tim Sweeney? It was somebody that was speaking for Epic, stated that those deals they have done have not panned out, and I'm sure they meant Remedy's, because they're the premier deal that we know of that went to Epic. So they're moving away from them. I think I think that's good. I want to see Control do well. I want an Alan Wake 3. I like all these ideas, but I'm telling you guys, I feel like I've been reporting on this since 10 years prior to me starting YouTube, because since Max Payne, they've always had financial issues every time. It happened with Alan Wake 1 and the Xbox. And it's just like, I don't know if they're cursed or if they're financial people, just, maybe they've got a baker and a rowboat kind of thing, and the financial person doesn't have this, not the skills. I don't want to say it that way. I just don't know what's going on. It's like, it would be nice though for them to have a success, and you can say, all right, you now know what it's like to make money day one on your game. And that game won awards. It was on everybody's channel. It got insane reviews, and once again shows you that doesn't equal sales all the time.
Yeah.
It just doesn't.
And it's hard to talk about at this point.
Yeah. And I think the thing about Alan Wake, and I say this, and people always, they like clutch their pearls and they gasp at it, but I always tell people this, like, the first Alan Wake, like, yeah, people loved it, but were people really talking about it like that? It wasn't until, they released it on PC, and then slowly over the past decade, people are like, oh yeah, Alan Wake's a cool game and everything. But a lot of people, they didn't show up for it like a lot of people were expecting. And so when I saw that Alan Wake 2 had underperformed, I was surprised, but I really wasn't at the same time.
I get you.
Because it seems like just one of those games that it is so its own thing.
It's like Twin Peaks.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. It's its own thing. And it's just like one of those things where I can't just like blanket recommendation for this. So yeah, play Alan Wake 2. Are you going to be interested in that? No, you kind of have to like, you got to have a little something to it. So when I see it didn't make money, it sucks, but it's par for the course.
Don't you also feel,
Neo,
don't you also feel that it's possible that like there's the difference between a cult classic and a cult classic that's big enough that the cult becomes bigger because of it? And it feels like with Alan Wake, as a Alan Wake 1 fan and 2 fan, that cult, they're not doing anything to get new people. In fact, in many instances, Alan Wake 2, they did stuff that was more for fans than any outreach to other people other than graphics. It was like, it was more, it was, you know, there was not a lot of outreach to others. So it didn't surprise me as well. But you were going to say something. Sorry.
Yeah, no. It was inadvertently, it was kind of like you veered the conversation to where it was going. Alan Wake 2 is very much so a game for the people that loved Alan Wake 1, you know, in every way, shape, or form. So the idea of them trying to like branch out and bring in newcomers, that wasn't their prerogative, and I think that's fine in the case of creating art. Like, this is what you want to do. Just know that this is what the sales are going to be. It sucks, but I mean, that's just the nature of doing business, dealing with high art. But I think Control was profitable, right?
Yes.
Yeah, Control was profitable. It was a new IP. It was a new IP. Like, I know far more people who dived into Control who didn't play any of Remedy's games at all.
That's a good point.
Yeah, and there was still the little inklings of the what did they call it, the
AWEs
game? Yeah, the AWE. Yeah. There was like still the inklings. So if you were a fan of Remedy's previous games, you loved Alan Wake, you're like, oh my god, all this lore stuff. But there's people who play Control who probably didn't even know all that stuff even mattered. You know,
right.
Like people who are freaking out, like, oh my god, that's the guy from Alan Wake. It's the same actor and everything. And then you start seeing more and more stuff happens, and so yeah, it's not surprising. But I do like the idea of them. I know you're saying it's like deal made with the devil, but I like the idea of them partnering up if that means that whatever. So what's interesting about this press release, and I might be looking a little too deep into it, but they were saying how like they're going to be working on this stuff in tandem with Annapurna. Yeah. Now, does that mean that they're just going to be assisting with the development, like we're overseeing it, or are they actually going to create like true transmedia where it's like the stories that are told in the Control TV show and the Alan Wake TV show or movie or whatever they're going to do have some type of narrative synergy with the games or whatever we're going to do?
I took it that way. I took it. Yeah. And especially, by the way, the Fallout effect is in real effect. The Fallout TV show and the knock-on effect of that. You guys got to remember, when the Fallout TV show came out, all the Fallouts exploded in sales beyond belief, to the point to where even we were looking, and I remember us covering it, and I was like, check your numbers before we talk about this online, because I don't want to get clipped for this shit where somebody's like, you know, somebody said 500% increase, you know, or what have you. But we saw those numbers, they exploded. I'm sure internally they were happy, but also probably a little sad they don't have a Fallout ready. But yeah, the idea of having a Control kind of thing, it does make more sense in Alan Wake. And dude, I hadn't thought about that, but you are right. When you play, you can get through Control and go, these AWEs sound cool, but what's Quantum Break? Or what's, you know, what's this, what's that? Like, what does it really mean? And they may just see it as nothing more than a story piece of paper, where then a person like me sees it as something else. But the thing is only I will get more out of it than they like. They might read some fiction, but that's about it. Where somebody like myself, who's a big fan, will be like, oh my god, this means Alan Wake's coming to DLC, which he did. So you see those kind of things. Also, hats off to them for DLC that's good too. I actually think they're one of the few companies that released what I consider to be like, you know, nice, bite-sized, playable, but enjoyable DLC that didn't hinge on some other thing like a Far Cry DLC, where they're like, we're going roguelike for our DLC, even though, admit, Ragnarok did that and Valhalla did it, but both those nailed it. Far Cry, those guys should never do DLC again, now that I think about it. I'm sorry, I don't know what's going on there, but if I was Ubisoft, I would just grab the Assassin's Creed DLC guys and be like, go over there and fix whatever fucking is going on the Far Cry side. Like, could you please go fix that shit? Because the difference in quality is it's not even night and day. It's like me making a game and John Carmack making a game difference. It's ridiculous in the quality of content you get in the DLCs between the two. And then a little bit about Outlaws. So Outlaws reviews, these came out, dude, it was this week, right? Outlaws was like Monday's review. Damn, it feels like a long week. I did rate it a wait. I don't know what you think of it overall or what you guys do. I know that Cowboy had said he hadn't even, you know, turned it on yet, but for that game, man, there's a lot that's fun, but it is just one of those titles that has a lot going on, and every time you dive into something, it doesn't offer as much depth as you hoped. It's like there needs to be one more thing here. Oh, I can go and eat and do a mini game while you're eating. And I remember...
It feels like it belongs in like a Quantic Dream game.
Or a Monster Hunter.
Yeah.
But then when you get done with it, you're like, oh, that's it. That's it. It's just this arbitrary random, like, I feel like John Travolta in the GIF, where I'm looking around going, well, what, why is that there? And then you go and you do stealth, and there's these hard gated stealth shit that the stealth in that game is way higher than I expected. Tons of stealth in that game.
Yeah.
A massive amount. And some of it, very well done. But the core mechanic of fucking the mission being locked to this little alley in some levels, where they'll be like, you're on a stealth mission and you try to go off and it'll be like, mission fucking, you got 10 seconds to come back in line. And by the way, if anybody gets mad about that, you got to get mad about Red Dead, because they do the same fucking thing. Red Dead 2 got dinged for this, and so that I brought up in the reviews. So should Outlaws.
It's always been a part of Rockstar's design.
Yeah, this is very close to that. But the one thing I do want to say is I am excited because for the most part, while speeder biking around, I got a good idea of what Far Cry 7 is going to look like, because the engine changed. They've cratered Dunai. That's done. Far Cry will be on this engine. And I do believe that's actually very exciting, because this game showed two parts that really interested me, rural and urban, which has been an issue for Far Cry for years, where you go into a city-style place in Far Cry and it looks like trash. It's like little...
Especially 6, I think.
6 was terrible. So yeah. I'm very excited for the tech. Very excited. And I know Ubisoft is trying to make their devs talk more, and that's also super exciting. But this game... It started off on a bad foot, and it just its timing was off, man. It just has too many little issues that crop up over time, and then those are ignoring the mocap thing, or ignoring what they've done with some of the characters and some of the lack of violence that you see in the game. It's an odd title, man. It's an odd title. I enjoyed some of it though. Silver, how many hours have you played of this?
I'm probably at about 15.
So what do you think after 15? General impressions. You don't have to dive too deep, but...
Yeah, they're a little mixed. There's also the question of how to judge it as a game and how to judge it as like a Star Wars game.
Disney Star Wars game. Yeah.
Like certainly as a Star Wars game, feelings are somewhat mixed, where there's a lot of like the usual stuff where no opening crawl, no long time ago, galaxy far, far away. No fanfare. In fact, I haven't come across a single John Williams musical motif, which at times feels like a colossal waste, like the imposing presence of the Empire without the Imperial March. You go to the cantinas, there is a jukebox, but the jukebox doesn't have the cantina music from Mos Eisley as an option. Feels like another waste. Like you have all these resources because all the recognizable sounds are there, all the Ben Burtt like sound effects, the engine sounds, the laser sounds, all of that is there, but it's missing the John Williams sort of heart of it, and that to me is as integral to the feeling of Star Wars, and my nostalgia for playing through the Star Wars games like X-Wing and whatnot, where those things were all equally as integral. So that it's missing here does sort of stand out to me.
Yeah,
but then. On the positive notes, what I love the most about the game is the aliens. The sheer like amount, variety of aliens on display really, really does a great job of like giving you the atmosphere and feeling of the Outer Rim, where all these people have been pushed out from the inner core because they're not human by the Empire. So they're now living on the fringes of like society and whatnot. And I think it does a really good job of sort of imparting that through environmental storytelling. You have a lot of like there are new alien races that we haven't seen before. There are old familiar ones, and the great thing also about them is that of course you don't have to worry so much about the vacant dead expressions that you see in a lot of
Inhumans
NPCs in the game. That doesn't apply as much to like the aliens. So that I think is really solid. Also, just the locations. Really, really solid. Like they're so good at making areas feel lived in. Like, even in going back to the Division, like making these feel like real locations that you're walking through.
Tremendous job.
Even when the levels are linear, even when you're moving from A to B through a scripted sequence, it feels like an actual location that you're moving through, and not just a confined video game level for the most part. I think that they sell that illusion really, really well. The stealth, you said you were surprised at how much there was of it. So was I. I was also honestly surprised at how rewarding I found it. Like, it's probably the best stealth I've played in a Ubisoft game in a very, very long time. I've been consistently able to sneak through sections, ghosting through without knocking anyone out, or anyone spotting me, raising any alarms. And doing that has been consistently challenging and rewarding. Like, the stealth is very rudimentary. It's not on the level of Metal Gear Solid or Splinter Cell or whatnot, but it is rewarding. And you get tools to play around with. Like, you get 2 different distractions. You get your whistle, and you get the little critter that can both create distractions. And you can mess around a lot with that and create different situations. You also get a smoke grenade that can obscure you and stuff like that. So it's fun to mess around with. And I found that really engaging, especially in the Star Wars context of like that dichotomy you see between the grimy rural locations that you described, or even urban locations, and then the shiny, polished, glossy Imperial.
That's amazing.
Facilities,
Such
right?
a good dichotomy there. That
dichotomy is amazing in
fantastic.
This game.
Yes,
and it feels really, really rewarding to like infiltrate these Imperial facilities without anyone ever spotting you or knowing you were there. Like, that's a really nice Star Wars like power fantasy that the game allows you to indulge in. So I think on those levels, I think the game really works for me, and I found it really fun, and probably the best like new Star Wars game I've played in a very long time. I mean, I did play Dark Forces Remastered earlier this year, which was also amazing. That is an old one. Yeah. So yeah, it is probably the best new Star Wars game I've played in a long time.
Yeah, and that's what sort of I think bothers me the most, is that there's some bones there, and there's places where they just drop the ball.
As a Ubisoft game, I haven't seen any microtransactions or in-game store in the game. I don't know if it's there, or I just haven't seen it.
Yeah, I don't. In Star Wars, there's the deluxe.
Yeah, they priced their DLC up so fucking high already.
Yeah. 3 days. Yep. 3 days. You can play. Here's your FOMO edition. Just call it what it fucking is, man. Just call it FOMO edition. Don't try to lie to us. We know what it is, and it's fine.
Do we want to talk about the save corruption issue?
Yeah, I had it.
Yeah.
So listen to this. So I don't like to talk a ton about reviews because you're not supposed to, right? There, embargo. So, but I start hearing rumors, man. Start hearing little tiny tidbits about people with save game corruption. And I don't have it, right? I'm like, okay, it looks like I dodged a bullet. I don't have it. But it's like, good to note. I could say other people have reported it, or I've seen rumors of this, but I haven't got it. I get to the very last day of the review, and then I get it like 3 times in a row. And luckily this save, their auto saves where I was, there's been some lengthy auto save times, but nothing that would destroy me if I had to go back. But when you have to go back because of a bug, then you add the 2 together. Sort of like the calculation's different. And I fucking was like, okay, I lost 10 minutes. No big deal. I loaded back in. I did the mission again, which involved a cutscene that I decided to sit through that first time. And then it did it again. Then I went back. Then I got to the cutscene. And I was like, fuck this. I'm skipping through this cutscene. Then I did it again. And then I got it again. Now, by the 3rd time, I was like, am I doing something wrong? Like, I'm going to do this one more time. And it worked after that. And there was nothing I did different. It just happened. And I couldn't do anything. I was just stuck. I like the character had, when you get a level load, there's some pop in of textures. It's almost like a texture popped in over the top of her toes, which stopped her from moving, which, by the way, isn't a possible thing. I'm just saying that's what it felt as a gamer when I was playing it. But on the other hand, there is some stuff that they've done really well there. AI is not one of them. That game's AI is a fucking tragedy. That game's AI makes stormtroopers look good in the movies. Like, you're watching the AI. There was that time I put in the video where all these speeder bikes just get up and stop, and everybody's just looking at me while we're in combat. I'm like, you're looking at me, I'm looking, you're in a fucking line. So I was just like, boop, 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 and blew them all away. And they're all, thank you for saving us. I'm like, I don't even feel comfortable saying I saved you. Like, I don't even know if I was involved in this. It was so weird. But there's their new planet that we've never seen. This is all canon, which I think is fine. I think the character is and the story for me was as bland as a story could be, and most likely wanted to focus on the gameplay, and I think that hurt it. I think if the story had been better, I would have been able to say this narrative is the thing, and the narrative is like, you don't have any money, you did something, and as Silver, I think, said in our Discord, it wasn't you, it was somebody else, stated a very clear fact. Every time she does something, it's like she gets by on luck, not skill. Every single fucking thing in that game, from the cutscenes to even some of the events, even some ways I played, I always felt like I was lucky. I didn't feel as much like it was a skill. I mean, I got gratification from stealth stuff, but there were times where I was like, even the plot of one of the missions is based on the luck you had to get that mission. And I remember thinking how much that slightly burned me, like not in an angry way, but in that removed some of the juice that I would have liked. Christopher, $5 super chat. ACG, what are your thoughts on Greedfall 2 and the Spider devs going on a possible strike? So we can jump from Outlaws. Did you guys see this?
No.
Did you guys see this shit? Okay. So we talked about this last week. Greedfall 2 scares the shit out of me because I'm a huge Greedfall 1 fan. And they've changed pretty much everything, right? Like, it's early access. They've changed the combat style, whatever. So I was pretty excited about it. And then last couple of weeks, less so for certain reasons. And I was like, ooh, this might have trouble. And then this last week, Greedfall 2's devs wrote a letter to the company with cartoons in it. Okay, I want to make sure people understand, when you write a letter to somebody, if you're drawing in it as well, or you're baking muffins in different colors to prove to the Mass Effect devs that red, blue, and green aren't good decisions for the end of Mass Effect 3, that's effort you're putting in. They put in the effort to do cartoons all over this letter, and it's 10 pages long, and it breaks down every problem, and all of them implicate Greedfall 2 as having, or indicate Greedfall 2 as having a rough fucking go of it when it comes out. Like, they basically, without saying it, are saying, if this is released, they stated no one would have when you do something well. I don't ever do anything well, so I never have this feeling. Not gratitude. What's the feeling when you do something really well?
Gratification.
Accomplishment. There we go. Yeah. They said nobody would feel a sense of accomplishment. They would feel shame. And those words, pretty rough. And you can see this 10 pages where they basically talk about sexual harassment. They talk about wages. They talk about losing premier company people. They talk about the issues with the storytelling. And I know you guys may not be into this, but Greedfall 2 is one of those AA titles that I cherish because it almost hits better than a AAA in a way, but it's still janky. And it's at that middle price. And this one is early access for an RPG game, which is doubly bothersome to me. But if you guys get a chance, you should read this article because it is a 10-page PDF of them deballing everybody at the company. And there were no names attached. They just said all the developers, like a letter from us to you. And we're saying that the internals there are just terrible, that nobody's happy. People are leaving. And that, to me, indicates Greedfall 2 is going to be rough. What was the game that had the portals that came out? Nightingale. Nightingale have the same issue where, like, when a game gets released into early access, I mean, there's some No Man's Skies, but we can't all No Man's Sky our games, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we don't. How many times do we want to hear, oh, they turned it around? It's like, what the fuck?
I think Nightingale, I think they picked a bad time.
No Man's Sky also wasn't early access. Like, that was a full release. It just,
true. I did 24 hours live stream of that game. It was not early release, but it felt like it.
Because Nightingale released right on the heels of Pal World and Enshrouded, which were both
both really solid
base builders. And so, look, we also have an open world base builder, but it's kind of sloppy and it's higher priced. That's like you got 2 strikes against you coming out the gate already.
And survival.
Yeah.
You know, the idea of punching another tree just kills my soul, man. And I come from a logging town. That should appeal to me. But the idea of another survival game where like you're gonna chop down trees or you're gonna do this or those games.
That's what got Palworld going. I was like, you can put these little animals into slave labor to cut down the trees for me?
Dude, the stories I heard were so dark.
Shout out my guy Depresso.
Why is that what he did?
No, there's a pal in the game called like Depresso. And it's just this,
gotcha.
Really sad looking cat, and like some of them are mining, and this one's just sitting there like.
Yeah, that's
like, bro, he's
sort
so
of
funny,
sad,
bro.
man. It's just sad. Hopefully, Greedfall comes full circle, and we but I'm pretty worried about it, to be honest. And that was prior to this letter. The letter really is a sign, man. If you have people, like I said, if you're putting effort into your letter, if you're drawing. You got comics explaining the weird shit that happens at your company. Somebody's putting in some serious effort. That's a lot different than a DM that says, I hate this place. Like, I can deal with that DM. I can fix that. But if somebody sent me a letter and it had a picture about how much they hated me, I'd be like, damn, this person took some time. Moving on from there, though, Deadlock by Valve. Okay, so has anybody checked anything about this but me for Deadlock? Because I'm going to cover it quickly if you haven't.
I have not checked anything into it outside of the controversy we spoke about a little bit with the guy from The Verge.
Yeah. So, man, I don't know. I'm seeing a lot of YouTubers liking it. I saw some footage today. Yeah. It's like a mix of a couple different games, I guess you would say. It's definitely got lanes and stuff like that, but it's a hero shooter as well. It's this mix. But the person I was watching was really happy with all these weird things they put together. Where basically everything you do in the game, or most things you do in the game, reward you in some way. And I'm pretty sure I heard this right. And anybody in chat, if you've heard this and it's wrong, please correct me. But even sliding to pick up ammo with some characters will give you a couple more bullets. So they reward action style gameplay in that way, which I sort of like the idea of. So if you look cool while you're doing something, there's a higher chance of you getting something from doing that thing by looking cool versus just, let's say, running by it. There's some stuff there that I like the idea of. Graphically, this thing it's a long ways out, that kind of stuff. But it is a Valve game. And that's, I think, why I'm bringing it up, is because Valve has a tendency, man, where I'll hear an idea that they had even back in the original, the zombie shooter, whatever. What is that even called?
Left 4 Dead.
Left 4 Dead. Where I'm like, that doesn't appeal to me. And then obviously it appealed to every human on Earth but me.
Oh man,
Yeah. So if you guys get a chance, check it out, man. What I saw looked rough in the way you would expect. Nothing bad towards it, but I like some of the ideas I was reading. I do like the idea of a game that's like, here's Vendel says, doing the slide gives infinite ammo while sliding. So you don't reload when sliding. Like, there's something about that I sort of like the idea of, to where you're going to have people doing specific things because it gives you all, I don't know, man. I like the idea. I think it looks cool. Are any of you guys a fan of not MOBAs, but like hero shooters, like your Overwatches, or the new Marvel one or that's coming out? Any gigantic...
I mean, I dabbled with them back in the day. These days, there's such a high time commitment. Yeah. And I feel like other people, I don't know, man. I hate when I feel like I'm having a good match and then we lose anyway, because there's like that one person that's just dragging their dick on your team.
Oh,
so that,
right.
I had that experience way too much
at all.
Yeah, I'm just like, no, I can't.
Yeah, it was the same thing with Overwatch. I jumped on board with Overwatch back in 2016. I played it for a while, actually. I played it for a couple of months because it was that game that we played, just because that was the time where everyone was kind of burnt out on Call of Duty, right before Warzone dropped, right before Fortnite got huge. So we're like, yeah, let's play Overwatch, man. We played Overwatch pretty religiously for a few months, and then I was just like, all right, I got my fill. And then after that, every single time I heard about Overwatch from my friends, it became this weird, like, abusive relationship conversation. Like, we'd all be in a Discord party chat. I'd be playing, like, I don't know, Persona 5 or something. And I'd be like, what you playing, bro? I'm on Overwatch, man. And he always felt like that guy who had to say something, and he's waiting for somebody to ask him about it. And then one time I was like, oh, man, why you silent like that? And he told me this whole story. He's like, yeah, man, I hate this game so much. I can't stand it. Man, I can't stop playing it. I was like, dang, bro. So every single time, and legitimately, it was like it kept more and more people in this weird abusive relationship with Overwatch. And then after that, I was like, all right, I'm good because I've seen what this does to y'all. But I'll probably dive into Marvel Rivals for a little bit.
I think I will too.
Yeah, it's been 8 years. You know, it's got the whole superhero aesthetic. I'll try it out for like 6 matches, and I'm like, well, that's my fill for another 8 years.
Yeah,
Dude, I have the.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say I have the same exact thing. I have a buddy, and we'll like all be in Discord playing different games, and then you just hear him like shouting shit, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm playing Overwatch." I'm like, "You just sound angry right now. Like, why,
Okay.
dude?"
So listen to this. Ours is not Overwatch. Ours is Rocket League. And I can hear the drop off when I say, "What are you playing?" And they don't go Rocket League. They go Rocket League. You know, it sounds like Ross and Friends when he met the guy who looked like him, who's like, "Oh, hi, you're Ross, right?" That lower, and every time I go in, or I just hear this, it'll be quiet in our Discord. Everybody's playing games. We have a very weird Discord where we're super chatty, and then sometimes everybody's just comfortable playing games for a good deal of time without talking. And you will hear out of the blue, and I'll be all, "Oh, Rocket League? Yeah." You'd be like, damn, every time I can call it out. Every time. I know exactly what's happened. I know why they're mad about it. I mean, I don't think I've had a game like that experience, but I've certainly had friends like that or girlfriends where, you know, you got that thing where you're like, yeah, but she's hot though, or whatever the thing is, whether it be Rocket League, it's fun though, whether it be Overwatch, it's easy to jump into and I'm good at it. I think there's a nested interest, not vested, but nested, where it gets nested into their even remembrance of the game. And so they're good at it, or they played it a bunch and they don't want to try something new. Like, I'll just go back to this.
Yeah. So it is definitely that. It's the stuff that you're familiar, and that's part of the reason why a lot of these, you know how like whenever there's this like Overwatch alternative game that comes out, you know, Concord, for example, a lot of people are like, yeah, you know, this could definitely like pull people away from Overwatch. And I was like, these people are in a very, very specific relationship with this game. They're not leaving. They're not leaving. And I knew that for a fact when, again, going back to the party chat, I was in the party chat and one of my friends was just so depressed about playing Overwatch. And I'm thinking in my mind, like, damn, he must be having an off day. You know, like he's probably winning like 1 in every 5 matches. That man won all his matches and he was so depressed. I was like, all right, it's done.
That's the guy who wins the lottery and is mad about it. He's like, I can't. And guys, I mean, it does happen where you'll get somebody who's playing it and I will honestly get a little nervous and I'll be like, do you need to talk or anything? You know, do you want me to run you through a game that's more enjoyable? Nah, I'll just play another 2 hours of Rocket League. I'll be like, what the fuck, man? I'm giving you an out, man. I'm helping you. I'll spend my time to get you into something else. But the overlap of those games is with WoW's. WoW is the same way. You try to tell somebody an MMO is going to do good, and I'm like, you don't understand, man. They're fighting a 15-year-old MMO that has people who have married each other. People have entire groups that they have known for 15 plus years. Generations. So when somebody releases a new MMO, people go like, yeah, man, this could be, it's not used anymore.
It's a WoW killer.
A WoW killer. Yeah.
It's a WoW killer.
I think Battleborn, when they said we're the Overwatch killer, probably taught everybody to not mention killer in the same sentence. But WoW and all these titles, they make it, I mean, even I've asked friends who are doing WoW, I'm like, hey, you want to play Star Wars Outlaws or whatever, you know, whatever game you're going to play this other game. Oh, no, I'm doing WoW. Even that, it pulls them in some way. And you can't tell me that there's not a very real, like, there's something very
Sims
chemically real in that. Yeah, Sims as well. I mean, I admit, Sims is on the automatic install of Windows for me. So I would definitely say Sims is one of those games for me. But I don't dislike it. I like it. If I was playing a game and you guys heard me talk like that, that fucking better be a review. Because anybody listening, if you hear me talk like that in a chat, you best DM me and remind me that's not what you want to do. I don't want my hobby to be like right? Like that just seems
recreational
hate playing.
Yeah, dude, hate playing. Yeah, it's like hate fucking. I mean, it's just those kind of things are weird to me, man. They don't. Now, some people can overplay it though. I've had a couple of my friends who will be like, "Oh yeah, I didn't like this, I didn't like that," and then once you start talking to them, you find out no, they're actually enjoying it. They're just sort of, you know, that friend, that kind of thing, where it definitely pops up.
Some people probably also feel a sense of, I don't know, commitment or something that, oh, I've invested this much into this thing, so I have to keep investing.
Yeah,
because otherwise, all the stuff I've invested into it is just gonna disappear and be for naught or whatever.
Sunken cost and all that.
Yeah. I mean, sunk cost is real, but I also think that if the investment is no longer making a good return, you take that money out of your bank account and you put it into a retirement.
I also don't think it's a very healthy outlook on life to see that, just because it doesn't have value now, doesn't mean there wasn't any value in it in the past.
Exactly.
And like the previous 3 or 5 years or however much I've played this, it's just that it's no longer fun. So it's time to cut away and do something else.
To walk away.
Yeah. I mean, every kid moves out. And
I mean,
by the way,
moving on from one relationship doesn't mean that the previous relationship was a failure or for nothing or whatever. It's just,
I mean, people have played WoW longer than other people have gone to school, been alive, gone through their entire school, life, and then got a job, and WoW was still there before that. Like, that's
I mean, I went back to it as someone who used to be like super bad into WoW. Like, I remember I got my first big boy job out of college. I got laid off and was basically, I was on unemployment trying to apply for jobs, everything I was overqualified for. So I couldn't find work. And so I ended up just getting super bad into World of Warcraft, like absorbing my life, and then broke away from that roughly around the same time I started content creation. And like, I'm playing again now, and they've changed it so much. It actually feels like I can just casually play. Like, I'll get on, I'll do a little PvP,
right?
You get a level, and then I can get off. But like, I do feel like the FOMO that WoW used to have, I don't know. It doesn't feel like it's still there when I play it now. I feel like, I don't know, maybe I've just changed as a person, but I don't feel like I need to, I have to get on, I have to do this. I'm like, if I play you for, 2-3 hours a week, that's enough.
I mean, I think also they've removed a lot of the complexity that invested you in that game. And so now, you're able to jump in and do whatever. And in the past, you'd have to be like looking for group. And now it's a button.
Yeah.
And
for sure.
I'm a huge believer in investment. Like, I think that's actually the best kind of game, the one that requires a little bit, a couple steps, so that those couple steps later, when you think about it, you can either think about it and go, that's too many steps, or you can think about it and go, there's an investment there, and I sort of like the feeling of doing a couple things. I used to love WoW, getting together, but that's back prior to all the, I guess, what would you call it, like streamlining that it's done. And it's fine that it's done it. They absolutely need to do it. But
I think a game like Warframe is a game that struggled with that a lot, where there's often been way too many steps to get into it.
Yeah. Or Destiny 2, which still hasn't figured out if the steps are up or down.
What's funny, I tried to play when they launched like Season of Discovery. I tried to play it, it's a fresh take on like the original vanilla experience. I fucking ended up hating it. I was like, this is the most tedious shit I have played in my entire life. I cannot believe I spent countless hours doing this growing up. I did a couple streams with it, and all of my buddy, I mean, part of it might have been the class I picked. Like, Rogue got really shafted in season 1 of the Discovery. What's up?
Looks like it might storm. Just wrap it up wet. If it's wet.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then is asked anytime Fighting Cowboys on, or anytime Neo's on, because there's always food discussion with us.
Yes.
The first one is a generic one, but let's get in the fight right now, which is, how well done do you like your steak?
Medium rare.
Medium rare.
Medium rare.
Okay. I want mine as black and charred as humanly possible.
No.
Oh, man.
No, you fucking don't.
Carrick, I got a boot here to sell you. There you go, bro. Have that.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness.
As boot as possible, and I know the exact reason why.
Just bite to the table.
I always put other condiments on it, but
of course you do.
I absolutely know why,
bro.
Yeah.
It's
I need the lore behind this. We
like the seafood one
else.
because my dad owned a fish plant. I don't like seafood. I was around it. My mom, she was a true carnivore. So if it was raw hamburger, while she was making hamburger, she'd occasionally take raw hamburger and put it, which just disgusted me. She would eat like deer heart, and she'd be nibbling on ventricles while we were trying to eat venison. And over time, she would eat a lot of raw food, or not raw, but is well past what you guys are even talking about. We're talking like heated up steak, and the blood would get into all the food on her plate. And so you'd have this slosh of blood mixed with the other stuff she was eating, the vegetables. And as a kid, it just kept clawing at me. And then a couple times we hunted, and a couple times people ate stuff that wasn't cooked, and they did get sick. And so it just triggered enough things. So now, man, I'm not lying when I say, and what's funny is I'll barbecue. Everybody loves my barbecue because I barbecue theirs whatever way they want. I can cook it. But with mine, they're all eating and done sometimes. And I'm still staring at this thing, and I'm like, if that thing bends when I grab an end, then it's a no-go. I want to fucking hold that thing by the end and have it just be like, and
oh my god,
occasionally
I got
I've
a good
had
therapist. We can help you.
Yeah,
bro.
I've had ones that aren't so bad, and I do enjoy the taste. But yeah, it's just one of those things, like seafood. Like I said, you know, it just when you're a kid, I don't know if you've ever got sick. Maybe when you were a child, you ate something, your brain is like, it's for sure shrimp. You know, like I don't shrimp are bad, even though it's not. Yeah, that's how it is for me.
I have that with Bacardi 151.
I was just about to bring you up a drinking story. Oh my god!
Can't even smell it.
Oh, so you mean the smell
of
Bacardi makes you sick to your stomach? Oh, interesting.
Instantly.
Yeah.
Wow.
It's one of those things. Like I got randomly like shit faced on a Tuesday night years ago. Me and my boy, we were over, like he was over. We were just watching The Flash, and then we were just taking shots of like what was it like? It was like Kentucky bourbon whiskey or whatever. We were just taking shots. We killed the whole bottle, and then the next day I woke up with like the meanest hangover. And after that, I just had to steer clear of anything Kentucky bourbon. So that's definitely a real thing, you know, growing up with the original Liver King. Oh yeah. No, it was, people don't, I love to hyperbolize. There's no hyperbole. It was even my other family members are like, damn, Sandy, eat at a different table. Like, that's a lot.
You're a lion now. Like you haven't even, you know, this is like watching a wild animal eat another one. But
bro, might as well just bring the animal to the dinner table.
Yeah, right, alive, and she would just slaughter. And then she'd eat you know, she loved the liver, the heart, and whatever.
Yeah,
you know,
liver's actually really good for you.
It is, but it's also the toxin streamer of any animal's body, and I'm always like, the idea of eating that is just, blah. I've had it. It's not terrible, but it's not. I did have beef tongue one time too, and I'm telling you, that was the worst, nastiest shit I ever had in my life.
Yeah, gizzards. Yeah, gizzards before.
I have had gizzards before. They were fine because we fried them up. They were like popcorn chicken in a way.
Yeah, they always taste like that.
There's something else going on in there. They're like popcorn chicken, but they're not. There was more texture in there than I think I wanted. But I couldn't.
I had alligator one time. That definitely tastes.
Oh, like Gator's just slightly chewier chicken, but Gator's great.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I can even tell it, anybody can, but the difference between me growing up on cow or elk and then going to bison was a huge change. Because bison's got a, I do like it, and I know it's healthier for you, but there's something about it. It's a little too, you could call it gamey. It's not really that. It's just rich. It's got there's a thing, a meatier thing to it where you're like, yeah, that's
big difference from ground beef. Big difference.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's not even in the same, you make like a bison burger and you make a normal burger and you have somebody try to eat them, they're going to know that one of those is not like the other. Yeah. That's funny. And then next up, they want to know, Cowboy, you have to give 100% your favorite Souls game. You cannot say you have a couple. I want to know your absolutely favorite.
Am I locked to FromSoft?
You're not locked to FromSoft, but
Neo
those
2.
kind of games.
Neo 2.
Ooh,
same.
Neo 2, no question about it. Neo
Interesting.
2,
I want to hear this. I want to hear this.
Just the gameplay, dude. You have the stance dancing in Neo 2. You have each weapon having its own full stance. You have the soul cores that you work in. You have an insane amount of build crafting.
Yeah.
You have a new game loop that just gets progressively better because your build keeps evolving with it. So you reach this, like, this game's going to get hard as fuck, but you're also going to get more godly, but you don't quite outpace it, you know?
Oh, okay.
It just, I don't know. Neo 2, I love Neo 2.
Nice.
Dude.
That's good shit, man.
Yeah, I think I talked to you on, I'm pretty sure Neo 2 was the one I was DMing you because when they were showing the letter grades, and I was trying to figure out the letter grades. I think this was...
Oh, yeah, the scaling?
Yeah, the scaling was a little weird. And I was like, I'm not understanding exactly the A, B, C. And I think that's back... I'm almost 100% sure I talked to you. And Neo 2 is by far mine. I mean, it's...
Yeah, I mean, the most fun I've had in one of these, like, Souls type games was the Rifleman build I did for Neo 2.
For Neo 2.
I played through that game.
Popping headshot people constantly.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and then regaining the ammo constantly and just, Basically playing it as a shooter.
One of the first games to do chain right. You know, chain's difficult to do. Any kind of item that isn't a solid thing. I remember getting and Kirasagama and going like, okay, let's see how it works. And it worked well enough that I was like, okay, this is my jam. And then the ability to switch out weapons, what weapons, like I like Sekiro, but I'll never play it again. I played it and I really liked it for its own thing, but it was parry heavy. And it was built on that. I mean, fucking big lights shit more in that game than any other game. I don't know why. Probably because I was pushing weapons I shouldn't have. But I just loved it. It didn't matter. Never once frustrated. I definitely was like trying to figure out what I did wrong on an enemy or something, or am I in the wrong spot? But yeah, dude, that game's awesome. It's good to hear. Good to hear somebody else. Do you guys do Dark Souls like a ton? If you do, feel free to speak up if there's a favorite.
So let's see. I mean, mine's probably gonna be very basic, very basic. I mean, I loved Elden Ring. Elden Ring was fantastic.
Oh yeah, Elden Ring is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
True.
Elden Ring is great. That was the one where, like, because I had played Dark Souls 1, I played Bloodborne, and played Dark Souls 3, and I was like, oh, these are great games. I like them. But Elden Ring was that one for me where it just clicked, like, oh, I finally get it. I love it. It's great. But ironically, like, I had a lot of fun with Lies of P. Like, I don't know if it was like the aesthetic and everything and how they were doing their thing, but I had a lot of fun playing that. But I have Neo too. I bought it like 4 years ago. I think it was on sale at Best Buy for like $10. I have it on the PS5, and you guys are talking like really good.
Have you
stuff.
not played it?
Neo 2 is so good.
No,
dude.
I mean, like I put it in my PS5, just like install,
Verify
and do,
it
like,
works.
next gen vents, and do all that stuff. And then I think I created the character, and then after that, I was like,
Dude, you have a world of adventure. Fucking
that's gonna be like the perfect palate cleanser between JRPGs, because you're gonna go from that more heavy dialogue, heavy paced combat to more action than your body has room for.
Yeah.
That's good. That's good. Because sometimes, like, when I do be playing the Souls games after not playing it for a very long time, like, man, starting up another playthrough of Elden Ring was tough because it was like, oh, I'm not used to having to get back to this. But now that I've acclimated that in my mind and everything, like, okay, I can probably do that for Neo too. Because you guys, that's the thing. Every single person I've talked to, they don't really mention the Neo games, or if they do, it's always like a negative connotation. Like, one of my friends who played it, he said like he didn't like how something about the environments, they weren't like that diverse. He felt like
that
they were
is
very, like, samey.
They're a little tight. There's also some tightness in those environments. That's for sure true. He's right. Yeah. But phenomenal regardless. Silver,
good to know.
Was your rifle build then? Was that your favorite? Was Neo 2 your favorite then?
I mean, certainly. I mean, in lieu of that, my favorite From Software game is probably Dark Souls 3.
Mine
which
too.
was probably the first Dark Souls game, or first From Software game I played where I felt it didn't feel that clunky.
Yep.
Because all the previous ones always felt incredibly clunky to me in their movement and overall control. Where with Dark Souls 3, it felt like they finally nailed on a formula that felt really engaging.
Go ahead.
I'm doing a replay of them all right now, just like a Souls-a-thon thing. And so I went through the Demon Souls, just got through Dark Souls 1. And it's been so long since I played Dark Souls 1, but man, going back to like that movement, ooh.
People call Resident Evil tank-like. They have no clue what they're talking about until you have to respond quickly in a Dark Souls game, and it controls like Dark Souls 1 or 2. 3.
And the moans in Dark Souls 1. Every time your character gets hit,
It reminds me of Camilla Luddington doing an interview about Tomb Raider, Shadow of the Tomb Raider. She was on a night talk show, and she's like, if you didn't know what I was recording, you would have assumed it was torture porn or it was porn. And she said that she actually phenomenal. I think she fit that. I thought her voice in those 3 games.
She was incredible.
Games, And she was just open about it because everyone was like, and she was just, after recording it in the sound booth for a while, she's like, man, this sounds
we need
really
14 more variations of that.
Yeah,
please.
we need give me the O. Make sure your O's are pronounced correctly. Wizard of Smoke.
This a little more.
Yeah, get a little punch on the starting. Wizard of Smoke, $5 super chat. Happy Friday. I love Nyx and Outlaws. Who was your favorite companion in a game? Favorite companion in a game?
So wait, do they limit it to like little creatures?
No, it can be anybody.
Anybody, any person?
It could be a character in Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic if you wanted it to be. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
But they just can't be the main,
It's a hard
I
one.
mean, they probably do
It's a
have to be
lot.
someone who stays with you from like
Yeah,
start
somebody
to
who's- for the most
Beginning
part.
to end, yeah. Fudge.
Man, that is hard because I'm trying not
Because
to go with,
companion
like,
companion could also mean party member too, right?
That it does. It does. Yep.
yeah,
For sure.
yeah. Okay.
Well, the one that pops up into my brain for some reason is Acro from Shadow of the Colossus, which is a weird choice because it's really just a horse.
but
it feels like
well done.
It is your
Yeah.
only
Integral to-
companion
yeah.
throughout the entire game. Like it's your
Yeah.
only company
Yeah.
through the entire game. There is a sort of emotional connection you form with it that ties into like the way the game ends.
No, I think that's a
as
fair
well.
answer. I think
that's
that
that's a really
that's
good one.
that's the one
actually.
that immediately popped into my head. But it's probably not my absolute favorite. But yeah.
Yeah.
I know who my least favorite would be.
go for
for
it.
it.
I want to hear this.
Fucking Mimir. In
Ah.
Ragnarok.
Oh,
Just,
come on, brother.
Just
get up, brother.
Kratos, you're on fire. Like,
Oh,
no
oh,
shit,
yeah,
Mimir.
okay,
I'm
yeah,
aware I'm
true,
on fire.
true,
You
yeah.
motherfucking head. Just it felt like the ultimate backseater.
Right.
He was
Yeah.
always
Yeah,
telling
yeah.
you you're
One
going to
Twitch watcher.
you're going towards the objective. Maybe it's that way. Like
It could be that way, good brother.
Do you think? The way I'm going, is it that way? Thank you, Mimir. Thank you very much for
And then
the
you play-
obvious.
You play Valhalla, then you die. Let's run it again, good brother.
Dude, oh my god.
So I'll say my favorite companion and one that's been in multiple games, but I'm talking in specific the 5th title, which is Herc in Far Cry 5. A redneck who's always talking about getting shot in the taint. Always these hilarious redneck shit he says. His dad is like, you weren't even swimming in my balls when I was killing people in Nam, and his dad and him talking back and forth as he's helping you. And he goes all the way back to 3, I think. I could be wrong on that, but Turk is for sure in 4, but I think he's in 3. And
okay.
comedic relief like that. And in a redneck town, in Far Cry 5, it was all about like these prepper redneck doom folks, and so it's pretty dire. So having him dropping, like he'd say something like, I'm gonna go from point A to B, but not in that order. And you'd be like, what the fuck does that even mean? Like, what he would say the dumbest smart shit, and you'd just be like, oh, I love it. We gotta be quiet. Or he'd go, we gotta be quiet. There's guys ahead. Oh, we gotta be quiet. There's guys ahead. And you'd be like, dude, come on, you're the worst partner ever. And I like that kind of stuff. Especially a solitary game, when somebody's there that adds a little bit of party levity. It's always good. What about you, Neil?
Right.
I would go right off the top of my head. I'd go Garrus from Mass Effect.
Interesting. A solid choice.
Yeah.
Solid.
Like that's like the first thing that I could think of, because I was thinking of like other characters. I was thinking of like little tiny creatures that follow you and stuff. But then I'm like, who's the one that really like resonated with me? And I was like, that was my man's, bro. And Garrus immediately came to mind.
Mass Effect has my most hated one too, though.
Oh, who is it?
Jack.
Really?
The telepath. Yeah, I don't know what it was about that character. I just wanted to throw him out the fucking airlock, man. It's just one of those things that they're around you a lot. They start doing stuff, and pretty soon you're like, dude, just, I just don't want you in my party anymore.
Also, Midna from Twilight Princess. Come to think of it, like
Midna.
sassy, kind of funny at times.
Yeah, she was cool.
Dude, I don't remember anything about that.
Midna, yeah, and then the end. Oh man, the end of the game was so sad.
Yeah,
man, that's a Wii and Wii U game, right? Original.
That was no, it was
that was a GameCube.
GameCube. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
gotcha. Man.
Yeah, actually, it was right on the crossover. I think where it was both GameCube and Wii.
Yeah, that was that was like my first or second Wii game when that came out.
What about hated? Anybody else have another hated?
I figured out one I would pick for liked.
Go for it.
It's newer, but my second playthrough of Dragon's Dogma 2, I gave my pawn the simple inclination.
Yeah.
And I loved it.
Yeah, I loved it.
Because every interaction, he would just be like, "Oh, master, there's a fucking ladder over there."
Yeah,
like,
dude.
Yeah, buddy, there is. Let's go take a look.
Yes, that's what I'm saying. That's why I like Herc. The dumb character is funny, is good.
He was just dumb and lovable for the Siraj was my pawn. And he was just this giant max height cat that said the dumbest shit.
That's awesome.
I loved every second of him.
That's another somewhat dire game. like or dark or solitary. It's 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 something about it. Having a character that makes you laugh helps. Neo, did you have any you hated?
I don't know if hate is a right word for this one, but as a kid, I couldn't stand Navi from Legend of Zelda.
Oh, that's a
Hey,
hate.
listen,
That's a hate.
Bro, all the time, bro. There's
Hey,
specifically no voice acting in this game except for that. Hey, listen.
Damn, that'd be rough too if that's all you're hearing is just that.
All you're hearing as a kid, hey, listen, and then Navi would sometimes like talk shit to you, and I was just like, are you serious? I could put you in a bottle, bro.
Before we jump off, I'll wrap it up then with most hated character in a game. And character doesn't have to be, and I will tell you straight up, this is not a joke.
Yeah.
I replayed this recently to find out how much, if my hatred for this fucking character is real. And people already know where I'm going with this, but I'm going to say it anyway. Mary Jane in Spider-Man. I tried to get her killed so many times in that mission where the terrorists were attacking. I waited. I was like, come on, terrorists. Come on. Just get rid. She was a terrible person in the game. Which, by the way, she's sort of terrible in a lot of the comic books. So it's not like I'm saying anything that's really out of order. But that character, every time she came in, she did anything, or the way he acted, I was like, I just don't like that character. By the way, I'm not saying she's bad acted. That usually means they're well acted. If you hate somebody, like it means they're doing something that resonates with you. So I'm not dissing on the actress or anything. It was the character themselves I fucking despised. Any for you guys? Like
It's a hard one.
Maybe, what about a bad guy that was really bad? Maybe that you hated.
I think
because I would deal. So if I hate a character, to me it more comes from a place of annoyance. Like I cannot stand you.
Yeah.
So versus like a really great villain, I'm just like, oh, I love to hate you, but not because I hate you like what you did. It's like you are just so well written. You are great. And at that point, we're getting into discussions of annoyance versus like villains who are actually cool. Like, like some
well
of my favorite,
done.
like, obviously like Kefka, really well done villain. If you're looking at characters like Persona 5, Kamoshida, the first villain.
Or somebody said Joffrey from Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Obviously well acted, but the kid got some hate because he was so good that people were like, I fucking hate you. It's like, calm down, people. Calm down.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think if there's any. Yeah. Do you have any Cowboy that you?
I'm trying to remember Ted Faro from Horizon.
From Horizon.
Right.
You did not.
Because I remember the first time I like you're like up at the place and you're really reading into the lore books. I was like just reading every single line and I'm like, holy shit. Like you are the biggest piece of fucking filth. Oh my God.
That's such a good point.
Then they turned that to 11 in Forbidden West. Yeah.
They did. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. I think, I mean, I don't know, man. I think those kind of characters, like, I agree, because I remember playing that game going like, man, this guy's a piece of shit, or was a piece of shit. But I actually think that's awesome. Like I said, if they're well written and I hate them.
No, I don't hate them, but like, yeah, in terms of like bad guy that had like memorable impact, like thinking back to bad guys, that's one of the only ones where I'm like, you are like, oh my God, you're shitty.
Yeah. You are a piece of shit. Anything else before we wrap up? What are you guys doing on your channels? You got Black Myth for you, Cowboy, and then you got some games coming up.
Yeah.
I don't know what we can say. I haven't looked at the NDAs
I mean,
other than the embargo.
Astrobot, Space Marine. I mean, they're obviously coming up. They're coming out.
Yeah.
And Toria, hopefully, if it's been cleaned up, that's I don't know. I think it might be releasing a little too early. We'll see. I thought the demo was salvageable. Was not really impressed, but fingers crossed, because I always like a good Souls-like, and I hope their confidence pays off.
Yeah. What about you, Neo?
I took a little bit of a break this summer just because I had like a lot of events happening, a lot of friends back in town, taking trips certain places. So content has been sort of light on the channel, but because everything's winded down, it's the end of summer, I'm ready to dive back into it. That's why I've been playing a lot more stuff recently, because I wanted to do sort of like a revisited game thing, like a game I talked about the channel years ago. I play it like 5 years later. Does it still hold up to my same expectations? Did I uncover anything new about it? So that's what I'm gonna be doing throughout like the month of September, and basically up until Metaphor Refantasio comes out, because that's gonna be like the next big thing I focus on. But yeah, just like starting next week, getting back to like doing like the regular live streams, the just chattings, the stuff like that, and just talk about like basically anything that's happened in my absence. Some of the stuff that was like, you know, the usual gaming topics that we see. But yeah, that's like the basic gist of it.
Excellent. What about you, Silver? You still uploading? What were you uploading? You were uploading
Dawn of War 2.
Dawn of War 2. Yeah. You still uploading that?
Yeah, for the time being.
Excellent. Myself, let's see, casting a Frank Stone, which is super massive, and Dead by Daylight. That's the Until Dawn style game. I'll be doing coverage for that, and then coverage for Space Marine, and then coverage for I know the embargo date, but I don't know what you can say. See, that's the problem. This is why I don't even get into this shit, because you're always, you know,
I think it's fair to just say if you're going to cover something, you know, like we don't know any details about it. Obviously, I plan on covering Wilds whenever it comes out.
But there's something that happened here recently where even that was not acceptable. So even stating that you were in the future possibly going to cover something wasn't going to be allowed because they thought it might indicate you had something from the
Jesus.
Yeah, so I was like,
some companies are big with those, like the embargo text. Like I remember there was one embargo. They were like, okay, do you agree to cover the game? I was like, absolutely. Oh, do you also agree that you won't talk about the game until we give you this? It is not when you can start posting about it, but you can say that you're playing. And I'm like, sure,
dude.
So they get very.
It rarely happens, but the one I got, I've got many times actually, not many, maybe 4 in the entire time, but occasionally get one that says, you really can't even, you know, you should just not post about it at all to be safe. And I was like, damn. And I get it because they don't want everybody asking for codes or they don't, you know, like I do get it, but it sucks because then I'm all, well, you know, I normally do say what I'm covering in the future, but you don't want to even hint about that. So, which I get. And then I really want to cover Solar Crown, Test Drive Unlimited. I'm trying to get a hold of them. Well, I have, but I'm trying to get coverage for that because I love myself some open world racing games, and I was a huge fan of Unlimited when it first came out. So, and then there'll be a bunch of other games you guys will see from us. Also, you'll continue to see the Friday podcast. At some point, we're going to try to figure out the Wednesday one or other side podcasts on this channel. Make sure to check out these guys' YouTube channels. I'll make sure to put them in the description as well. And if you get a chance, go to Spotify and iTunes and rate the podcast. It does help, especially as we're on this new channel. We're trying to sort of get everything back into somewhat order. I think we're hitting 15,000 listens, and back before we switched to Twitch, we were at about 290,000. So we have a little ways to go. So if you can tell anybody about this podcast, I would appreciate it. That'll be it for us. I want to say thank you to these guys for showing up. Thanks to Silver, as always, for holding it down. 9 years, as you said.
9 years now.
9 years, man. I appreciate you, buddy.
It'll be 9 years.
Appreciate you being around. It's a long time. I have friends. I have exes who haven't lasted. I have family members who haven't lasted that long. So you've stuck around, and I don't know why, because I wouldn't stick around for 9 hours. That'll be it for us. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Peace out. Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Take care.
Wow.